the world center of racing. Tonight we are zooming in on Daytona International Speedway here in Daytona, Florida for the Geezer Authentics 75 at Daytona International Speedway. Before we have that race though, the EvanWallMedia.com Florida Heats, 2 races, 10 laps each, and the top 19 cars will transfer into the main race. Sitting in practice right now, we have about 3 minutes left in practice. Not too many drivers on the track right now. You're looking at a couple of drivers. There's Kevin Foster pushing the 35 car. Before we really get going, before we look at any of these cars though, I want to go down to a quick track preview. Now it's Daytona, so it's not as much of a preview as some of our later tracks like Long Beach and some of those will be. But real quick before we get started, here's a quick pre-race track preview.
Alright guys, so here we are at Daytona, getting ready for another season of the Bandit Racing League. I'm here in my Evan Wall Media Camaro. I'm going to take you guys for a lap around, which is something that I'll be doing for each upcoming track on our schedule. Here at Daytona it's going to be a little bit different though. Instead of just taking you guys for a couple laps around, I'm going to be doing a mock qualifying run. I feel like a couple laps around might just be fairly boring here at Daytona, and I feel like qualifying run is something that a lot of people don't exactly know how it works if you don't know a lot about racing. So before we get going, I want to talk to you about this camera view. So it just looks like a normal GoPro camera view mounted on a roll bar, but you'll see once we get on this banking that the camera is going to stay level to the ground. So here we go now, we start to turn and the camera is going to stay level. With this you can really see how enormous this track is. It's a 2.5-mile tri-oval, 40 feet wide, with turns that are banked 31 degrees. And from here you can really see how crazy that 31-degree banking is. So this track is so big that it actually has Lake Lloyd in the middle of it, 29 acres large. And if you didn't know anything about racing, you may be wondering why I'm running up here on the top of the track. We get 2 laps to qualify here at Daytona, and it's so big and banked so high that I can hold it wide open all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the top, which is the longer way around the track, for my warm-up lap and my first time lap. Then right before I start my final time lap, I'm going to dive down low on the bottom, and I'm going to do my very best to stick it down there until we get our second time lap completed. So you see me drift up in the corners a little bit, but other than that, I'm just going to stick it down there as good as I can. I'm specifically saying that I'm going to do my best because by no means am I great at it, but it still gives you guys a little bit of an insight into what these drivers are going to be doing once qualifying starts. Another thing you want to notice is how little input I'm trying to put into the steering wheel here. I want to be as smooth as possible in order to not scrub off any speed. You see I dove down low. I'm going to try and stay on the bottom now. And staying super smooth is something that's really important here at Daytona or Talladega, because you spend so much time trying to build up speed that if you just barely brush the outside wall like I did a little bit earlier, if you just dip a tiny bit below this yellow line and you get on the part that's not banked, even the straightaway is banked a little bit. But if you get down there, it's just valuable seconds that you're losing from your qualifying time. And at a track like this, qualifying is so important because these cars, especially at the very top, they're just going to be separated by a hair. So any tiny mistake that you make is going to mess up your whole race. It can honestly cost you a chance at making the race with the heat races that we had tonight. So another thing, as we just finished our time lap, as we head back around to pit lane, another thing that I want to talk about here, since this is our first race of the season, is the cars that we're running. Right now I'm in my Evan Wall Media sponsored Chevrolet Camaro. Tonight you're also going to be seeing Ford Mustangs and Toyota Supras on track. This season we are in the B-Class Xfinity cars instead of the Cup cars like last season. They're powered by a 5.8-liter V8 engine, putting out 650 to 700 horsepower. Tonight though, when we head over to Talladega, after a couple weeks, they have restrictor plates on, which will limit them to 450 horsepower. That has to be done to kind of tune down these cars, because without it we'd simply be going too fast and it'd be less safe than it already is. But nevertheless, that has been a few laps in a mock qualifying run here around Daytona. So I hope that this helps you guys to understand this track just a little bit better and kind of sort of explain what you're going to see once qualifying starts soon. So with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed the rest of the broadcast, and I hope that it's a good race. So now back to my future self up in the booth.
All right, everybody, we're back from that short little video. Right now, we've got Bill Harkins in the booth. We're going to go ahead and talk to him for a second. I believe he's going to talk about the upcoming season, things like that. So you can just go ahead and take it away, Bill.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Harkins. I am the owner and proud sponsor of the Bandit Racing League and Geezer Authentics. The Geezer Authentics Xfinity Series is a 20-race format with an all-star invitational in the middle of the season, where we allow the guys to invite 2 members from anywhere in iRacing to come on in, compete in a heat race format, make it into the feature. This will be the second time we'll do an invitational like that. So, whether you're turning in tonight to support one of our league members, sit behind the wheel of one of our race cars, or just tuning in because you enjoy our brand of racing, I want to genuinely thank you for helping us grow this league bigger and bigger season after season. Each and every one of you are part of our Bandit Racing family. From our league members to our broadcasting team to our league management and all of our great fans. None of this is possible without the support and dedication of all of you guys. Tonight, whether you sit back and relax or find yourself on the edge of your seat, we hope you really enjoy tonight's broadcast of the Geezer Authentic 75 presented by Evan Wall Media, Geezer Authentics, and Bandit Racing League. Let's have a great season, and let's go kick some ass.
All right, everybody, that was Bill Harkins. Thank you, and you better get down in the car real quick, Bill. Get your qualifying lap. So we have 7 minutes left in qualifying right now, and qualifying is going to be mandatory for these drivers. Real quick, also in the booth with me today, I'm Evan Wall, of course, commentator and producer, and we have commentator Marshall Crocker Jr. If you want to go ahead and say a quick hello.
Hey everybody, it's Marshall Crocker Jr. up here in the booth, joining alongside Evan for this season. It's a pleasure to make my official race debut. I was in a test race last week, but can't wait for tonight's race. I mean, you talk about the real-life Daytona 500 coming up in a few weeks and how much of an adrenaline rush that is every year, and to get used to these drivers, to see a live race from my perspective for the first time in this series, what better race than at Daytona? I think it's going to be a great night, and I can't wait to get started.
We're about to see if we can watch some of these drivers take a lap around here. See who we've got on the track currently, but let me go ahead and pull up our standings on the left side. So you'll see Benjamin Lacey is your quickest qualifier right now with a time of 50.481. And this is a heat racing format, of course. Here we go. Now we're looking at the 60 car of Dustin Franklin, the Blue Angels Camaro right there. But as I was saying, this is a heat racing format. So the top 2 qualifiers are going to lock themselves in. Right now that's Benjamin Lacey and Brandon Trogdon up there in the front 2. But by the end of qualifying, whoever's at the top 2 is going to go ahead and lock themselves into the Geezer Authentics 75 here at Daytona. Everyone else is going to have to race their way in through the heats. There's going to be 2 heat races, both 10 laps each. And each heat race is going to take 19 drivers. So 2 heat races full of 19 drivers, plus 2 that will qualify their way in, is going to be how we set this field right there. You're looking at Bill Harkins, the guy that we just talked to. In the number... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, you want to talk about, just how crazy this format is. We saw Dustin Franklin running a moment ago, only 2.5 hundredths down on the pole time, and that was only good enough, I think, for 11th for Franklin. So it's going to be, the times are going to be so close here, and if our good buddy Bill Harkins here can run a lap even in that ballpark, there's a good chance within 3 hundredths of a second, could be anywhere from first all the way to 20th.
So we'll go ahead, and as we're watching him, you can see our Skype up here on the right side. We have a various number of drivers here on Skype. We even have one foot cam if you look down at the bottom. Trey Ellis going to be running a foot cam for us tonight. Not as exciting here at Daytona as it is somewhere like Long Beach or something like that. That's definitely going to be an exciting one to watch. But see, we got a lot of drivers up there. Garrett Hall, Brandon Jackson, Bill Harkins that you just saw us talk to. Last year's champion, Ricky Hart Jr. He's even up there, the one with the googly eyes. As well as David Leakey, Jason Greenwell, Matt Crockett, Michael Ramos. Good number of drivers there. You see Bill Harkins in 33rd on the qualifying board. Only a couple of drivers still out on the track. This is the 97 car of Eddie Hagge, making his lap with 3 minutes to go. We can talk about Daytona a little bit. It's just an insanely large track. It's a 2.5-mile tri-oval, 40 feet wide, with turns banked 31 degrees. And for those of you who don't know racing, this track is so big that it has Lake Lloyd in the middle of it, a 29-acre infield lake. In 1960, they even started a race with 68 drivers here, and that's something that we can't do. That's one of the reasons why we do have the heat races. But it has been done before.
Does truly give you some size perspective, because the closest a track like Bristol's ever going to get to a lake is if somebody spills a drink in the middle of it. So, it does really give you perspective, for just how big this track is. But you talk about the cars tonight with the restrictor plates on them, as fast as these NASCARs, or the NASCAR feeder series Xfinity cars can go. Well, it still looks like a mighty impressive time, especially once you get the bump drafts going into the race. We're going to see some fast racing tonight and some chaotic racing for sure, but now just a couple more drivers, I believe, to finish up qualifying, but for the most part, it is, of course, mandatory to qualify to make it into the race, but it looks like, for the most part, with only 3 drivers left, everybody will manage to do so.
I believe so, and a big lap there for Brandon Jackson in the 99 car. I believe he finished 3rd last season in points, somewhere up there, 2nd or 3rd, a very, very fast driver last season, but he didn't specifically show out on any of the super speedways. He was more of he won at Indianapolis, Bristol, I believe. He won at Indianapolis and Bristol, back-to-back wins, back-to-back races last year. But here he is qualifying at the top of the board here on a super speedway. And one thing that I guess we do need to go ahead and mention, since we're in the Xfinity cars this year, not the Cup cars, is that they are a little bit different. They're Mustang, Camaros, and Toyota Supras. They're powered by a 5.8-liter, 358 cubic inch V8. And normally they put out around 650 to 700 horsepower, but these restrictor plates on them that we have here at Daytona and at Talladega limit them to 450 horsepower. They'll still be pushing some insane speeds as we get around the track today, though. We can go ahead and even talk about our upcoming schedule a little bit, as you can see it there on the screen. Of course, Daytona tonight, and then next week, Iowa, 150 laps. Then we have Long Beach, kind of a wrench thrown in for some of these normally oval drivers. We've got Atlanta, Lucas Oil, Nashville, Canadian Tire, Auto Club, Phoenix, and Five Flags, and that's your whole regular season right there. So just in that short little grouping of racetracks, everybody's going to have to do everything they can to gain their points and try and cement their position into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, you talk about throwing a wrench in the plans of any of these drivers. The season starting with Daytona, Iowa, Long Beach, probably the 3 most different racetracks on the planet. So you really get something for somebody of every discipline, but it's not going to be easy to win even 2, let alone all 3 of those first 3 rounds.
If we look back at last season, our winner at Daytona was Ricky Hart Jr. Of course, went on to win probably 4 or 5 races in a row, except for the road course race. He won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 races in a row, except for the road course race. The first 5 races the first 6 races of last season, he won 5 of them. He's definitely going to want to try and do that today. I would pull up his camera. You can see him right in the middle, but he is not at his rig at the moment. Stepped away. But definitely a really fast driver that we're going to have to be on the look. We're going to have to be on the lookout for. Qualified down in 13th. Now that's nothing though. That's barely even behind because he qualified with a 50.499. Brandon Jackson on the pole qualified with a 50.474. So just very minuscule amount behind there.
Right, yeah, such small margins here at Daytona, and really, qualifying can only mean so much. You're basically got your right foot planted to the floor and just trying to hug the apron as much as you can around the lap. So these heats, I think, are really where we're going to start to see what guys have and what they're going to be able to bring into the feature. And I think strategy for track position is going to be a lot different than for the points and the real win. So we'll have to see the comparison between the heats and the proper race at the end of the night.
We're getting ready to grid here for our first heat. Brandon Trogdon going to be starting on the pole for it. Eddie Hagge in the 97 car going to be on the outside pole. Real quick before these drivers get going, see if I can grab somebody for an interview. Brandon Jackson, this is Evan Wall up in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, how's it going?
Number 99 car, the driver of the number 99 car, Brandon Jackson, with the pole here tonight. How's it feel to come out here, get on the pole?
Man, I'll be completely honest with you. I have never ran a good qualifying ever at a super speedway, and for me to get the pole here completely shocked me. I'm normally give me a mile and a half and I'll put it on pole almost every time, but here, never. 1 in a million shot that just happened for me.
Definitely a fast driver, and from what I heard, it didn't sound like you even knew if you were going to be able to make the race here at Daytona, but here you go, secured your spot, starting up front.
Yeah, that's a real good thing. It was very close for me to make this race tonight. I had a couple things go my way, and somehow made it out of qualifying on pole. It's dangerous for the rest of the field, man. I tell you what. Now I'm already up front, and I don't have to spend time getting through the field. Oh, they're gonna hate me. I want to control this race.
All right, sounds good. Well, definitely good luck. I know we talked a little bit about you hanging in and commentating the heat race that you weren't racing in. You want to do that, or do you want to head back to your own channel?
Yeah, I can come in. I'll pitch in, whenever I need to, see what I see. It'd be nice to see what these guys do here. It'll be really entertaining and also very informative for me. I haven't raced these cars on super speedways more often than not, so it's gonna be a bit of a learning thing for me right now. I'm gonna let you guys take away.
All right, we'll take it away, but we'll definitely leave you here in the channel, and go ahead and feel free to pitch in anytime you'd like to. And speaking of that, the lights on the pace car are off. Pace car diving on down onto pit road, and the green flag is out. These guys are off here at Daytona International Speedway for the Evan Wall Media Florida Heats.
Yeah, no clear jump from either line to start the race, but the 97 of Eddie Hagge there on the outside, getting a pretty good run for the very first corner. He's got the 74 behind him. It's already looking pretty uniform with the lines heading into the first corner, but well, I'd imagine that's not going to last for much longer with only a 10-lap heat.
Car to look out for, like I've said before, we've got Ricky Hart Jr. in the 64 up on the top line, third back on the top line, and he's followed by the number 2 car of Nick Nickerson. Those are definitely two fast drivers, no matter what track they're on. So those are definitely two of the ones that I'd say we need to watch out for. I'd say a lap or two, they'll probably be up here up front. So far, the 69 of Brandon Trogdon doing a good job of holding the front of the field.
Yeah, nobody really moving out of line. Feeling comfortable with where they are, just trying to stick with it for a couple laps, I'd imagine. The last thing you want is a crash fest to start your night off as one of these drivers. But yeah, that top line car, I think Eddie Hagge didn't lead at the line, but he came damn close, and now he's doing his very best to kind of side draft the car up the way through the apron and try to get a good run off here, because if he can get down to that inside line, much more opportune spot than the top of the outside, I'll say that much.
A little bit of moving and shaking throughout the pack, but honestly not as much as I would have expected. There's a little bit of trouble right there with the 77 car. That's going to be Mac Nelson in the Rowdy Energy Supra. A little bit of trouble, but able to gather it back up, no problem. But this is definitely a race that I expected to be somewhat of a crash fest, these heats. They're only 10 laps long, and a lot of these drivers are going to be fighting for only a couple positions. So, well, I say fighting for a couple positions. I believe we only have I believe we have 20 cars in here. If I'm wrong, 21 cars. So only 2 drivers will not make it. Everyone else should make it into the main race.
And like any race at a big super speedway, the moves you make this early in the race aren't going to last till the end. So if I'm one of those final 2 cars right now in the field, I don't feel any sense of urgency to get up there. You just got to stay with the pack. But again, for the time being, our top 2 of Hagee and Trogdon there, not in that order, they've kind of been holding things down up front. The 77, the 74, and the 85 with Cody Welch don't really seem to want to upset the balance right now.
I think so far I've noticed 74 on the high side. He's giving a good run to the leader on the high side, but big thing is he's got to have people behind him, keeping him up behind the leader. Because if the guy on the inside, all he has to do is just keep a good push on the leader down the straightaways, and they can pretty much control the race. But if the guy on the outside is consistently up against his leader in the line, we got trouble in the back.
Not
we
sure
do
who
indeed. I see the 06 is off the pace. Can't tell who else is involved.
Not sure who that was. I believe the 13 car at least was involved. The caution flag is going to be out. So Christopher Fiara, David Leakey, Lane Brown, and James Healy all involved in that action. Let's head to a replay, see if we can see what happened. So we're looking at the replay here. I believe the 4 car of... not sure who that is in the 4 car. I believe that is supposed to be... I'm not quite sure. Maybe an issue with trading paints.
On my screen, it looks like the 39 of James Healy as he's showing up on iRacing Hook, the 49 of Lane Brown. As far as I can tell, 2 guys just kind of got off center in terms of their lines heading into 3, and just kind of a miscommunication. The 49 dove down a little bit, and well, just like that is our first incident of the night.
Yeah, I believe on our screen it's going to be on the broadcast screen. Which number did you say came down?
The 39 came down on, the 49 came down on the 39.
Yeah, the 49 of Lane Brown. He's going to be showing up in a number 4 car here on our broadcast, I believe. We're back live now. Drivers coming into the pits.
Well, we talked about just a moment ago that the prospect of what kind of moves would the guys at the back be making if they want to make it into the feature. And the one thing I didn't consider is the one way to guarantee you won't make the final is to not make it out of the heat. So hopefully the guys that did get an incident there will be able to get back, use a quick repair, and hop back in the race, provided they are given one in the heats. But if multiple guys, or at least more than 2, had to come into the pits, or at least tow, well, that brings up the question, who can get back out of the pits first to not worry about the finish in the heat, but at least take a spot in the feature for points.
Yeah, honestly, with only 2-3 drivers that aren't going to make this race, really, the best way to ensure that you make the race is just to finish the race. With the way that I would expect this to go, I'm sure there will be more than 2 cars that are going to be knocked out of the race with 7 laps to go. Maybe not, but it would definitely not surprise me if more than 2 drivers are knocked out of this race and not able to finish. So if you're able to finish, I'm sure you'll be able to make the race. But I know there's some of these drivers like the 69 of Brandon Trogdon, Eddie Hagee up front right now that they're not just thinking about making the race. They want to start 3rd, start 4th somewhere up front, because really, this race doesn't matter too much. It's that next one. Where you finish in that next one matters. And if you start up front and you can stay up front in that next one, that's where the points are going to be paying.
Right, but I think at the end of the day, though, we both have to admit, from the driver's perspective, there's always going to be that little party in the back of your head that says, okay, I know we're going for the finish. I know we just want to be safe. But you kind of also want to win the heat race and make a statement. Like, though it may be for points, and absolutely is more important, and I know it's what I'd be focused on if I were in their position. But from a driver's perspective, this is your first race of the new Geezer Authentic season. Coming into tonight in round 1, you can consider this the start of your season that sets the tone for the rest of the year. It's the same way a NASCAR driver would want to win one of the duels, for example. So I think, though, the logical choice by us up in the booth might be to say, okay, they're going to wait. Guys up front like Hagee and Trogdon, you never know what's going through their head, and something's telling me that those guys are going to want to get a little bit more for themselves than just the spot in the final, even if it may be as good as 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, of course. As I feel like it's all dependent on what that specific driver's thinking, but if you're up front, even if you're not up front, you always want to win the race. If you're on track, you want to win the race instead of just taking it easy, So lights are out on the pace car as it heads down the back stretch. We'll see what these guys do. Here was 7 laps to go in the heat races. Of course, I should have mentioned before, caution laps are not going to count. That's why we were still at 7 laps to go.
One thing I just want to mention as well to make sure we clarify, based on the session settings I can see, there's the possibility that only 13 cars are advancing to the feature from this race. I think the field might be cut a little bit shorter than we think, so I think that though it would make 43 if we just cut 2 off this field, I think based on the counts we're seeing, it would be a lot fewer than we'd expect. So if that's the case, we are probably going to see quite a bit more chaos in these last couple laps.
Well, if so, then that definitely will cause a good bit more chaos.
It's just what I'm seeing on the iRacing side. So let's hope it's the former, not the latter.
Let's hope so, but we'll definitely have to see. Pace car diving down low, though, getting ready to head back green. Another big jump for that inside line. The 97 of Hagee lagging back just a little bit on the outside. 85 of Cody Welch with a good push for Trogdon in the 69 car. 74 of Ryan Frazier with a good push on the outside line as well.
Yeah, Cody Welch, a guy we saw a lot of in the test race last week. He was a force to be reckoned with in the feature for sure. He was just always present there up at the front, and I'd imagine if this is anything to go off of, we'll see that quite a bit going into the race again. But the 74 car we've been talking about, giving some great pushes to Eddie Hagee on the top line, giving him the momentum he needs, and if they can get a little bit tighter there through the corners back onto the straightaways, they might have what they need to get Hagee up there past Trogdon into the inside front lane.
That outside line isn't formed up as well as they'd like to be, though. After the 2 car of Nick Nickerson, there's not a lot of cars back that. There's a fairly large gap. But one driver just jumped up there to help them a little bit. That'll be Jason Greenwell, I believe. Or no, Tony Hilbrand's. The 92 car just jumped up to the outside line. Greenwell's down there on the bottom. Still neck and neck, though, with Brandon Trogdon and Eddie Hagee up here at the front. Both getting big pushes from behind here. 5 laps to go now.
Things starting to get a little bit more dicey here. Guys are starting to peak up and underneath the 91 car there, especially the 74 of Ryan Frazier. Been given such great pushes the entire race, but it looks like he's maybe thinking about teaming up with the 77 there, trying to get to the front on his own.
He's getting a little antsy, trying to gain every position that he can here with 4 laps to go. He wants to start as good as he can up there for the main race. 77 not as good as a pusher as the 74 would like, though, I'm sure. He's hanging back just a little bit. He may be trying to play it a little bit safer. But still, Brandon Trogdon and Eddie Hagee neck and neck up front. Trogdon with a little bit of a push. And 85 of Cody Welch still stuck to Trogdon's rear bumper.
Yeah, as we come to 3 to go, we saw Welch kind of peek his nose there to the inside, come through the tri-oval, but doesn't decide to commit. But this is the furthest Hagee's been coming into corner 1 past the 69 of Trogdon all race. So now I think it's the question, who is going to make the big risky move? Whether it works or fails, it's going to shake up this kind of basic 2x2 line format we got going here that I know the guys that just want to make it to the final are going to hate, but the guys that want to win this thing are going to love. And now Welch, the best push he's gotten there, might be able to jump to the outside if he can clear Hagee there in the 91.
In 64, Ricky Hart Jr. is going to be turned around here. Down into the grass. And a big wreck behind him. A good bit of drivers involved there. The 84 of David Leakey one of them.
I mean, talk about Ricky Hart Jr., defending champion, had such an impact on last season that, coming into tonight, probably just wants to make it through and use his abilities in the real race, and came very close to saving it, avoiding a wreck entirely, but it was all the chaos and confusion that happened as a result that caused the caution there.
We're looking at instant replay. 64 being pushed by, not sure who it was, but just a little bit of a push in the wrong spot of the car, and you're going around. That's just the way it works here at Daytona, and a couple other drivers sadly involved in that as well. See if we can follow along with another car here.
Looked like just a slight miscommunication from the 65 of Matt Clark. I think he was trying to clear air off his front nose and just kind of got interlocked a little bit there. And that kind of tells you with these quarter panels on these cars just how little of a bump it takes to send one of these Xfinity guys around.
It really shows you the littlest mistakes here can just turn into something huge. You can just be riding around, minding your own business, and all of a sudden here comes a car flying through the grass for seemingly no reason. It just comes out of the blue here, as opposed to some tracks. Usually tracks you have time to see what's happening and get out of the way, but it just happens so fast here that there's nothing you can do most of the time.
Right, and it's the reason that, to some extent, it's hard to, judge an entire season based off who wins at Daytona. The same goes for the real NASCAR series. It's just such a different brand of racing. And the top guys, I mean, Ricky Hart Jr. coming in, won this thing last year. Of course, different discipline, but, he's got the experience of these tracks. So you think if anybody, especially in a heat race, he would be the one to make those safe moves, stay out of trouble. But that just shows, no matter who you are, you're always at risk of getting involved in something here at Daytona.
I mean, one thing that we can look at last season at Talladega, Daytona's bigger brother, you could say, Alan Castle was our winner. And I mean, nothing against Alan Castle. He's a very fast driver, definitely a very good driver, but that was his only win, and he wasn't necessarily up front. There, if you watch that replay, there was a huge wreck right there at the end, and he was just the cleanest car there at the end. He was able to dodge some accidents, did a great job of dodging accidents and making his way up to the front to be the first car back around to the line, really. So sometimes that's all it takes here, is just being the first car back around to the line.
Yeah, I think awareness is the name of the game. Not just for from the perspective of trying to avoid wrecks, but just in general, having a good understanding of who's around you, who you can trust. It's definitely a lot about mind games, and I think it's a skill that it doesn't necessarily apply at every track. I mean, you talk about when we go to the road courses starting in a few weeks at Long Beach. Definitely a very different skill set there, much more about minding your own business with your own race. I come from a road course background, and that's a lot of what you see. You're just kind of focused on what you're doing. But at these races, these bigger pack ovals, you just start to see that element creep in where it's like, okay, I can't just rely on my own abilities. I got to trust those around me. And it's where the guys that form up in teams and talk to each other off channel, it can certainly help, but at the same time, it's good in these heat races to be able to scope out your competition, and even more so the guys that are going to be able to help you and make that experience trying to avoid incidents just a little bit safer.
Yeah, and if we're look at our standings on the left side, assuming that the top 19 will be taken, should be Alan Castle and Rob St. Helen that don't make the race as of right now, assuming that they're taking the top 19. So definitely unfortunate for them. And like I was just talking about, Alan Castle, driver of the number 16 car, who won at Talladega last season. So it just even more that goes to show Daytona and Talladega are truly just a different animal than any mile and a half or short track or anything else.
But just the same, I mean, that mentality that anybody can come out and win it, I think it makes guys even more antsy and aggressive and hungry to win it. So I think, if anything, that just improves the quality of racing. And I know Brandon Trogdon and Eddie Hagee, to my knowledge, did not, I don't believe, win a race in the series last year. So to come away, get the first overall win of our new season would definitely make an impact and would definitely, again, make a statement. But at the same time, if it's going to be in a way that puts their entry into the heat race of jeopardy, or into the proper race in jeopardy, then they may want to weigh those pros and cons.
Yeah, everything's just pros and cons. lights are out on the pace car, and we're single file here on a start with 3 laps to go. That's definitely interesting. Didn't really expect that, but anyway, the green flag is out, and we're back racing here with the 69 car of Brandon Trogdon leading us to green.
Well, the important cars to watch are going to be Eddie Hagge and Cody Welch, because that single file is going to play right into their hands. Look at Welch jumping at the bottom of Hagge. Might make the move on Trogdon as well, but once you put the guys single file, you no longer have to worry about the packs. You can just draft on Trogdon and make the move here, and I think that's what either Welch or Hagge are planning right now.
Again, this will, being single file will really let the drivers choose who they want to work with a little bit more. When you start out double file, you're already there, but single file, you have a little bit more room if you want to stay on the inside or if you want to try and jump up to the outside. It's a little bit more of your decision as opposed to that double file where you're just kind of locked in. And if you want to make a move, there's not really much chance to unless you want to jump out to the middle, and usually that's just going to leave you hung out to dry.
Well, the funny part is I think the way we're going here coming up to, I believe, the white flag, is it looks like they're going to force Trogdon into the middle if anybody's going to go down there. Welch keeps peeking to the bottom, and with Hagge up there in the top, I don't think he's going to move from that lane, so you might see guys in very sticky situations, not by their own choice here, coming out of 2.
He does the 69 of Trogdon, seems to be peeking his nose up to the outside. He may want to be watching that outside lane, make sure it doesn't get a run, and try and block it if he does, but he better watch out for that 85 of Cody Welch peeking his nose down low to try and get this heat race win.
Coming into 3, Ricky Hart Jr., he just had an incident a couple laps ago, but if he can give a push to Hagge, we might have an unforeseen winner here in this first heat. No, not much movement here coming out of 4. Welch is maybe going to look at the top side. Can't get up there. Hagge now getting a push from Hart. Is it going to be enough? I think Trogdon might get him at the line. He does indeed. Brandon Trogdon wins the first heat of the night.
Brandon Trogdon, your winner, followed by Eddie Hagge and Cody Welch. So we get ready to start heat 2 here. We're going to have Michael Ramos on the pole. As we go back, as we get ready here, we're going to look one more time at this qualifying standings. So Brandon Jackson, of course, was on your pole, and there you see Trogdon started 3rd. See Ramos was in 4th. That's why he will be starting on the pole here.
Well, looking in context to last year, so many of the wins in last season's series were coming from drivers in that first heat. You talk about Nick Nickerson and Ricky Hart Jr. making up a large portion of the wins last season already. So a lot of new faces here to the series, it would appear, or at least guys that maybe haven't made the impact in the past they would have wanted to. But I know Robert Mathis was competitive in the points last year. Same with Kevin Foster, and then of course, series founder and director Bill Harkins there. So there's plenty of guys to look out for in this first heat, but Michael Ramos and Benny Hogan will be the 2 control cars, just like Hagge and Trogdon were last race, and we'll see if they have as successful of a time at keeping everybody behind them in line as those 2 drivers did in the first heat.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fast drivers here new to the Bandit Racing League. Michael Ramos, Benny Hogan, Thomas Finsler, Jason Roan, Victor Weaver, Dustin Franklin. All these drivers are new. Matt Crockett starting in 3rd. He was here last season, definitely a great driver. But you have to go down a good ways to find another driver that was here last season to 10th position, the 29 car of Robert Mathis. You got Trey Ellis, Kevin Foster, Terry Condis, Willie Evernham, and Brett Guzik. They were all here last season as well. But a pretty ways down before you find some other drivers, so that really shows you how quick some of these new guys are. And even Kevin Foster sitting down there, 12th place in this heat. He's a former winner here with the Bandit Racing League and definitely a fast driver on any track that you put him on.
Well, the real mark of an experienced driver is going to be knowing how to deal with all these new faces and have just a little bit of hesitancy going into the later stages of the race. Once those new guys, the split becomes, are they going to be extra safe because it's their first time, or are they going to be extra aggressive to try to make moves in their first race? And keeping that in mind is going to be the mark of a great driver here that will take their experience from last season and bring it into this new season.
Yeah, that's definitely they've had a lot of practice races, a lot of test races, everything like that. So some of these drivers are a little bit acquainted with one another, but I'm sure not as much as they'd like, because when you go out here on Daytona, as we're going green here for the second heat race, when you're going out here on Daytona, you really work with people a lot more than you do on other tracks, and it's hard to work with somebody when you don't necessarily know them.
Immediately first corner already seeing some chaos. Terry Condis in the 32 car comes off track, bounces over one of those curbing pieces there of grass, makes it back on track, so I think we'll go caution free, but some chaos already in the first corner. Maybe a sign of things to come here in the second heat.
You see Condis down in the infield off track down there, but luckily off track and out of the way. So we've got Michael Ramos still up front here. Benny Hogan on the outside line being pushed by Thomas Finsler in the 17 car. Bill Harkins back there, the tail end of the outside line, doing his best to make the race here.
Already up 2 spots by my count as Harkins, so a pretty good start to the race for him for sure. But back up to the front of the field, it hasn't really. It's actually mirrored the first heat in quite a few ways. The lines are looking almost identical here, and just like it would have been the job of the car there on the outside, the fourth place car every lap to make moves happen. I think it'll be the 17 of Thomas Fensler in control here. He's got to give a good push to the 25 of Hogan if they want to make some progress. But for now, it's just Michael Ramos in the 27 and Matt Crockett in the 10 leading the field.
Matt Crockett with a very brightly colored Mustang. Jumping up to the outside, making a big move right there, trying to head up to P1, jumping in front of Benny Hogan. Hoping that 25 can push him up to the front. And he's fallen back a little bit more than I'm sure he would have liked to. But definitely a big move
I love the
for him.
aggressiveness of the move, but that top line is just not forming up at all. Only 3 cars really, 6 or 7 of that inside line, so they got to get something going there if they want to make some moves. But that car there in the 3rd spot, it's car number 4, but I don't think it's number 4 on our timing. Actually, it is, so Trey Ellis there. Now becomes the control car. Look at the line up top. Now they're making progress, almost getting into the back quarter panel of Trey Ellis in the 4.
Yeah, Trey Ellis is definitely a really good super speedway racer. You can see he's trying to push there on the inside line. Is now the 10 of Matt Crockett. That outside line is formed up a little bit more, and Matt Crockett's making a little bit of a comeback there on the outside, being pushed by Benny Hogan. You see Terry Condis down below the yellow line on the inside.
Well, if you're Condis at this point, you're looking ahead and hoping that big pack you see up front crashes. At this point, he wouldn't have a transfer spot into the feature, but well, the main guy that I think is not only trying to transfer, but is trying to win this whole thing is Paul Wilson. He's given some great pushes, but he keeps peeking out there up top in the 27. If they can clear the 10 of Matt Crockett up there up top, he might have a free pass up there to the front if he can get that outside line to push him.
He is. That outside line is forming up a little bit better than it was when Crockett initially jumped out there. Still not all together, and they're moving and shaking around a little bit, but they're starting to work together more. And I'm sure Crockett is hoping that he can get those guys together a little bit more. 6 laps to go, still got a little bit of time to do it. Hoping these guys can get really stacked up and get some good pushes up there to the front to try and catch Ramos.
Yeah, for the time being, again, that outside line doesn't seem to have much momentum through the corner. It's always so much harder to keep, uniform straightness of the line there through the oval, the banked section. So back onto the straightaways, it's where it's easy to get pushes, and Benny Hogan's doing his best with Crockett, making some progress, but again, just so much easier to sit on that bottom line. And in both heats, we've kind of seen that to be the power line. We'll see if that carries into the feature in terms of the status of that line.
Yeah, I think if you're a more inexperienced driver, that bottom line is just going to be inherently easier because you've got the yellow line there on the bottom of you to sort of guide you. Not saying that these guys on the bottom are inexperienced by any means, but for the ones that are, that bottom line is definitely going to be a lot easier just because you can look at that. You got trouble in the back, it looked like. Not sure who that was. There was some smoke in the back for a second. It may have been nothing. But we do see Jason Rome and Dustin Franklin, 19th and 20th, riding here around back. Not sure if something happened to them or if they're just trying to ride back, stay out of trouble.
Yeah, the other driver note in that respect is Bryce Buffmack. They're sitting in 21st right now. He's sitting almost an entire lap back of the field, so you'd assume something happened to him. But, I mean, back up to the front, kind of a similar situation to what we've been looking at this entire race so far. And with only 3 to go this next time by, there's not much time left in the race. So if Crockett does indeed want to go for the win, he's going to need to hope Benny Hogan can make something happen up there in the 25 car.
There's a little bit of space back from Benny Hogan to the 17 car of Finsler. And if they could just close up all those spaces, they'd be in a great position. But it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do it yet, at least, the way that they are together now.
Well, again, you just want to make the heats at this point. You know, it's great to get those positions, but if you're Matt Crockett, I wouldn't make an unnecessarily aggressive move. And at this point, you kind of just want to trust Hogan more, if at all possible. But 17 car there of Thomas Fensler, he's getting wiggly down there in the back. And the question is he just doing that to try to square up a bump to the 25 of Hogan, or is he trying to maybe make a move down there to the inside line, force this thing 3 wide and get extra interesting?
Oh, and a big move from the 29 car. 29 car to the inside of Finsler, and we're going to be 3 wide here on the back stretch at Daytona. And a great move for him.
Yeah, called the right move, wrong car. Oh, he's getting real close to the 25, making contact very briefly on my screen with Benny Hogan. They managed to make it through, but now we got a bit of a checkerboard pattern forming up here. The 17 and the 25 make contact. He hits the 8. Can the 8 car save it? Kevin Foster, using that experience, it looks like he will be able to, but he's almost going to lose it. Cars are chain reactioning. Now we're going to have a wreck down there in the back.
On an unfortunate situation there, a great move for the 29er Robert Mathis, but it got some drivers messed up as you see the 8, or as he is on our screen, the 98 car go through the pace car. But a great move from Mathis, but just got a little bit of drivers out of sync and messed up a little bit, and ended up causing a wreck there.
Yeah, kind of a domino effect thing that I'm sure we'll see in many more incidents throughout the day. But yeah, Kevin Foster there, a great save by him once things up front went wrong. He got tapped there, I think, by the 17 car of Fenzer once he came down. And with all the chain reaction happening there, the Kevin Foster car of either the 98 or the 8 had to avoid everything, went through the pits. Then, as you saw there on the stream, passed through the pace car. One of those things that can only happen on iRacing, or at least you'd hope so. So it's good to see he'll at least stay on the race, and as long as he can keep it on the track, presuming we have 19 transfer spots, he's at least still going to make it into the feature.
Yeah, right now, assuming that the 19 transfer spots is correct, the 2 drivers that aren't going to be making it to the feature are Jason Rome and Terry Condis. But with still 3 laps to go, they still have a chance. Rome is 1 lap down, Condis is 2 laps down. They still have a chance to make that up if there's another wreck. Caution laps do not count. So they definitely still have time.
Well, I don't know about you, Evan, but I'm getting a serious feeling of deja vu there after this first heat in terms of the exact timing of the cautions. We're going to go once again to a kind of a green-white checkered 2 laps to go situation here to the end. And I'll throw it to you because I know some series are a big fan of doing this. I know some don't want to jinx drivers, but at this point, would you at least predict that we're going to see a finish very similar to the first heat where everybody kind of stayed uniform, didn't really make any moves, and we almost saw a pass there at the end, but everything stayed the same? Or are you expecting things to get a little bit off the wall here and see a winner other than Michael Ramos in the end of this heat?
You know, I really don't know. Honestly, I expected there to be a little bit more drama earlier in this race. I expected it to be the whole thing. That's what I expected for both of these heat races. I just expected them to be filled with cautions, I should say, just because a lot of these drivers, like we've said, they don't know each other. They're going to want to be aggressive. But I think they've done a good job of holding back, and they've done a good job of saving their cars when they've gotten in a position that was a little bit unsavory for them. But it wouldn't surprise me to see these drivers race clean these final 3 laps, but it really wouldn't surprise me to head to a green-white checkered here or have another caution before this race is over, especially with some of these big moves that these drivers are making, whether they be good moves or bad moves. No matter what, it can still end in a caution flag if somebody just gets a little bit messed up by it.
Evan and Marshall, you guys got a copy?
Yes, sir. Bill Harkins.
Hello, gentlemen. So there seems to be a iRacing something going on here. It doesn't appear as though our lineup is going to be correct for the feature. If iRacing doesn't set the 43 car field properly, we will cancel that session and line everybody up manually in another session. So there's going to have to be a little bit of time involved to move the two, properly. But in order to give everybody a fair shot, like we advertise, we will turn it into another session. So just want to give you a heads up on that.
All right. No problem. Thanks for giving us the heads up. Very good to know. We'll make sure that it gets broadcasted properly.
Yeah, it should have taken 20 in that first heat and 19 in the second, and that would have filled our field with the two qualifiers. But for some reason it didn't, so just stay with us.
Yes, sir. Just keep us updated, and we'll make sure that everything goes good on the broadcast end.
10-4, thanks, guys. Doing a hell of a job.
That was Bill Harkins there, owner of the league, and of course running in 17th position right now. Able to talk here under caution.
That at least answers our question there about the heat transfers. And I was going to say 13. It's going to give us 28 there to go, and I was under the impression we were doing 40. So that makes a little bit more sense. Good that we got that guaranteed, and at least that way we can say that pretty definitively, unless the two drivers, Jason Rome and Terry Condis, who are at least 2 laps down apiece, are all but guaranteed to probably be out of this race before the end. So at least now it becomes just solely a battle for position rather than for transfer spots.
Yeah, Terry Condis, Jason Rome not on track anymore, but Terry Condis is. So obviously he's hoping that he can get those 2 laps back. Like we said, you never know what's going to happen. But single file, green flag. We're back racing. The 89 car jumping to the inside. Michael Ramos staying on the outside. And Paul Wilson being pushed by Matt Crockett here into turn 1.
Yeah, Paul Wilson making that huge move there the first time down the straightaway, and it's what these single file restarts are going to do. I'm really fascinated that that's what we're using for restarts. It makes things just so much more chaotic, and just look at how far back the 27 of Ramos is being shuffled already. Now a car's going to head to his outside, so just like that, the 27 may go from the lead all the way down to maybe 8th after the very first lap of this restart.
That's the 29 car of Robert Mathis there on the outside being pushed by the 19 of Willie Evernham, 2 drivers that we saw last season. And now Evernham, he may decide he doesn't want to push the 29 anymore. We'll see the car behind him. We'll see where he goes. Now Evernham's going to head in front of the 29. Mathis going to be 3rd in line on the outside line as Evernham decided to push the 27 car of Michael Ramos.
Well, we took the white flag last time by. We're coming at a 2 now, and as much as we've talked about him moving back in these last couple laps, if he can get a good push, man, it looks like the 27 of Ramos might not be out of this. Getting a great push from Evernham there in the 19, but now the question is, will Matt Crockett make a move coming out of the final corner? He's got space up top. We're going to see a crash. I saw Mathis Ellis go around. Huge wreck. Are we going to go back to the line? Looks like no caution, so those guys will all transfer, but now it's a battle between the 89 and the 10. Crockett's going to look to the outside. They're up at the front. We're going to have a side-by-side finish at the line. I don't think Crockett will get the run. They're going to be right side-by-side. Wilson gets it by 4 thousandths of a second.
Paul Wilson, Matt Crockett, Michael Ramos, Benny Hogan, Willie Evernham, and Marshall Moran. Your top cars after that heat with a crazy finish there coming down to the checkered flag. Just a couple of drivers fighting for position. They were 3 wide and got together there.
Wow, I mean, a stellar finish for sure. I'll have to go back and look at what the chaos there was about. That caution towards the end certainly put a wrench in things for the guys up front. But yeah, great comeback there by Michael Ramos, and really just shows you how much power that car on the outside on the very final lap is going to have if they can get a good push from behind.
Heat 2 finishing up right now, so we'll see how many drivers are going to be in the race. See if Bill's going to have to start another session or not, but no matter what, we're going to be right here. And real quick, we're going to head to commercial break. So we will be right back. What's up, guys? The 99 of Jackson gets turned by Nickerson.
But I bet you didn't know that I also do in-person photography and videography, as well as graphic design, including, but not limited to, iRacing paint schemes and posters. Check it all out over at evanwallmedia.com. Thank y'all, and you enjoy the race.
Are you looking for a clean, fun, and competitive iRacing league? Well, look no further than Bandit Racing League. This season features the Class B Xfinity Series cars in the Geezer Authentics Xfinity Series. Broadcast live every Wednesday by Evanwall Media, the season features a 10-race regular season schedule, followed by 10 more playoff races and an all-star race. So if you need something to do on Wednesday nights, then check us out at banditracingleague.com and send us a message if you're interested in joining. We accept racers with a D license or above, and it's free to join, so don't miss out. All right, we're back from commercial break here. There was a quick little warm-up. In the session to me, they're gridding now, and it looks like it will have all 43 drivers. At least that's what it's showing for me at the moment, so we will get a double check to make sure that that is correct, but it should be, I do believe.
Yeah, just eyeballing the final spots from the heats. Looks like they got everything in order. So with that, the only two drivers from the two heats that won't be able to make it to the feature are Brett Guzik and Terry Condis, the only two guys that will not transfer from the heats.
Definitely unfortunate for those guys. Both two really good drivers. Guzik was our commentator last year. If you watched any of last year, then you'll know his voice for sure. Wasn't on the track any though. Was definitely excited to see him. I'm sure he'll be a great driver once we get to some of the other tracks, but Daytona just one of those tracks where things can happen. You know, you never really know what's going to happen here at Daytona.
Well, now that we're getting stacked up and ready to go for the real restart, of course, or the real race start, I should say. Of course, too wide, but Brandon Jackson, your pole sitter, a guy we talked to just a couple minutes ago, and that was the interesting dynamic, because not only did we talk to him, but we know that he would have got a chance to watch those two first heats, so might have a better idea of the drivers around him, but at the same time, you could argue he's the least polished, aside from, of course, Benjamin Lacey to his outside in the front row, who also transferred from qualifying. Neither guy was able to run in either of the heats, and you could argue thus has the least practice of anybody coming into this session, at least as far as tonight goes. So they're going to have to learn the guys around them and learn the driving styles of those they got to draft and race with here at the start. So I think they got the hardest jobs of anybody, but they have the best track position. So the 99 and the 7 of Benjamin Lacey could be in a very good spot to get tonight started.
Yeah, qualifying in 1 and 2, it's definitely a plus, but like you said, they haven't been out here on the track. I know Brandon Jackson, I don't believe he got too much qualifying, too much practice, if any, in tonight at least. I know he has plenty before now, even racing the 24 hours of Daytona. A little bit different, but still plenty of practice from that. Just seat time in general. He's definitely one that won't need as much practice, but definitely not able to get to run with anybody here just a few minutes ago, so you're still a little rough around the edges, at least tonight. Not warmed up as much as they'd like to be, but to be anywhere and not warmed up on the track, the best place to be is up front. You don't have to deal with as much cars. You can see a little bit better as the pace car is off, and we are green. So they take the green flag. Brandon Jackson out front, being followed by Curtis Yancey. By Benjamin Lacey on his outside. Brandon Trogdon giving the 99 a push, while the 89 car of Paul Wilson up there pushing Benjamin Lacey on the outside row.
Now going to run our first full straightaway of the new Geezer Authentics Xfinity season. Of course, the pack there up front hasn't really changed there from the start, but Trogdon's got the guy he was racing against for a large portion of his heat, Mr. Haggy, in there in the number 97 car. So we're going to see some guys that were battling there just a couple short laps ago, now getting into some friendly pushing sessions here. But for the time being, again, we're seeing what we saw in the heats. For the most part, too wide, but there's somebody kind of hung out to dry there a little ways back. Caution comes out. Not sure for what reason, but the front pack there looks pretty uniform there to start off our first lap of the night.
As we slow down here, we'll see what the caution is going to be for. See, we have a couple drivers with incidents, so we are going to go back and see if we can head to replay and see what they're for. We're going to be following Rob St. Helen right here. He had an incident at some point.
Well, Rob St. Helen is back in the pace line by my current estimation. We got a little bit of front damage there to the front right splitter of that car. Some damage as well for the 81 of Jason Rome there right in front of him. But besides that, Christopher Ferreira there in the number 13 car still hasn't come around yet after that first lap. And he's parked in his pit stall currently. So looks like the 13 car of Christopher Ferreira, the only driver not to survive the very first lap of tonight's race. And the 29 of Robert Mathis was also involved partially, but it looks like his car is all set and ready to go. It doesn't look like any, at least cosmetic damage there on the number 29 car.
Sending a message to our race director. We'll see if we can see what the cause of that caution was. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but we'll see if we can get an answer for that. A lot of drivers here doing the best to see everything that we can, but it is a big racetrack for sure.
Yeah, always tough to keep an eye on everything, and that goes for both the drivers and ourselves. I know that in the past, broadcasting some super speedway races myself, there's always stuff you're gonna miss. But well, the most important thing to be there for is those battles up front, and at least for the time being, I know we've only run one lap so far, but Brenton Jackson seemed to be holding things down up there in the 99. I think we'll have to wait a couple more laps if we want to see the guys moving up for spots really start getting going. And of course, we are early in the race. Never good to make moves that are unnecessary right off the bat, at least in a 75-lap race, that is. But well, we've got a lot of time, and it is the proper start of the season, and that's got to pump up the adrenaline for these guys, and we'll see what the effect is from running a real race for points versus running a heat race for spots.
Yeah, I know Brandon Jackson, he didn't exactly have last season. His Daytona race didn't exactly go the way that he wanted it to. He was leading there for a while, but not able to get the finish that he hoped for last season. But he's hoping that he can change that here this year, as he's currently out front now. But still plenty of racing to go, as we're only on lap 3 of 75, of course. Lights still on the pace car, but if we go through our field a little bit, you see the top 40 cars are on screen. Definitely a different sight than last season when we didn't even have 40 cars per race, but Benjamin Lacey, Brandon Trogdon, Paul Wilson, Eddie Haggy rounding out your top 5. Matt Crockett sitting in 7th place, started up front. Ramos, that led a lot of that heat, there in 9th position. Definitely a driver to look out for, sitting back there in 10th. This number 2 car of Nick Nickerson, a fast driver, probably one of our fastest guys on any road course races, but he's just as fast on 1.5 miles and super speedways, so he's definitely a driver to watch there. But going back through here, a lot of fast drivers. Greenwell in 18th. Buffmack, that we saw laying back in one of the heats, he's back there in 22nd position, not too far back. And Robert Mathis had a little bit of trouble at the end of his heat, but he was making a lot of moves up front. Definitely not afraid to be aggressive in that 29 car, sitting in 23rd position right now.
Yeah, Robert Mathis had a very busy night. You talk about being really everywhere through the field. He was making some great progress there in his own heat, and then got in an incident towards the end of that. I believe was caught up in some manner in that last incident as well. So if that's a sign of things to come, he's going to have quite the eventful next 71 laps coming to this restart. I mean, you talk about all those guys in the past that have had have had speed, but from my own estimations, especially looking at the race winners from last season, all spread out throughout the field so far tonight. So we got a good mix of new guys, good mix of older guys, and good mix of experienced gentlemen from the series that maybe don't have the wins to back up their success that they'd like so far. So plenty to look for, and plenty of guys that really excited to see what they can put down right about now.
Lights are out on the pace car. Pace car dives down onto pit road. The 99 car of Brandon Jackson leading the field to green. 7 car of Benjamin Lacey to his outside. Jackson being pushed by Trogdon yet again. An 89 car of Paul Wilson pushing Lacey on the outside.
Yeah, Trogdon relatively new to the pushing game tonight. He kind of just dominated his heat on the inside line for quite a while, but man, that top line there, the 7 car of Benjamin Lacey getting a great push from Paul Wilson in the 89 car. He's getting the push that he might need to put that thing down to the inside, and we'll see if he does decide to be cold-hearted and abandon Wilson, or if he just keeps that train chugging along. Looks like he will drop down into 3, so new official race leader, at least until we come to the line, Mr. Benjamin Lacey there in the number 7 car.
Brandon Jackson going to get his first shot at pushing here, being behind Lacey. We'll see how he does at it, and we got a new driver up top now, the 89 car, Paul Wilson. He's going to try and do the exact same thing that Benjamin Lacey did. We'll see if he can do it off the push of Cody Welch in the 85 car. 25.
Yeah, the 99 Jackson now kind of boxed in as well in his situation. I mean, Welch is somebody that we saw both in the test race last week as well as tonight has had a lot of pace there up front, so you got to think Wilson's got a good pushing partner there, but now Jackson trying to do the same thing for the 7 car, maybe get enough of a push that he can get himself back up in the lane up top, but man, that outside line still looking a lot more uniform than they were in the heats, getting much closer to the inside line, so I think they might have the potential, especially if this inside line can't get formed up, to keep doing what we saw the 7 of Benjamin Lacey do just a moment ago to make his way to the lead.
Yeah, these drivers are they've definitely calmed down a little bit, of course, thankfully, here on lap 7 of 75. As you see, the 89 car poking his nose out a little bit. Paul Wilson, he led there for a second. He's trying to do everything he can for that 25 car up top. Benny Hogan, he'll be 3rd in the top line. He was a little bit far back. He wasn't right on the bumper of Welch. So we'll see if he can get down together a little bit more, but after those 6 cars on the outside line, there's a little bit of a gap, which definitely isn't going to help them. They need a couple more drivers to jump up there on the outside lane and give them a little bit more of a push.
Well, if you want to talk about star power in that top lane, Nick Nickerson has moved up and is now sitting right behind the 25 of Benny Hogan, so he definitely adds some speed to that outside group, but Paul Wilson becomes yet another guy, just like the 7 a moment ago. Going to jump down to that bottom lane, abandon the renaissance up there on the top.
See Matt Crockett diving low to the inside.
Cody Welch becomes that same guy in a similar spot, going to go perfectly side by side with Wilson here through 3 and 4. Those guys are getting much more aggressive when it comes to the side drafting. Good to see the comfort levels from these top guys starting to go up as we go on.
He is in the outside lane, is pushing so well that it always looks like the 25 is going to jump up. We'll see where Nickerson goes. It's all a question where Nickerson decides to stick with the 25 or go around him. Going up there, 25 is definitely making a risky move doing that, because you never know if the number 2 of Nick Nickerson is going to follow you or if he's just going to blow right by you and hook onto the bumper of the 85. But what I was saying before is that this outside line, everybody keeps moving up to the front and jumping down to the inside. Well, at some point, that's going to leave that outside lane a little bit too unorganized, and they're going to fall back because a lot of these good pushers are pushing themselves up to the front and jumping down.
It almost seems like Cody Welch is trying to, upend that dynamic, because he's a guy that's had a couple opportunities now. Once again, I think he's going to clear the 89 of Wilson flat out, so he's got the potential to jump down, but again, doesn't decide to want to coming up to turn 1. Looks like the only guy really loyal to the cause of being up there on that top line right now, but now Nick Nickerson so far up as that top line that both the 85, as he does jump down, now Cody Welch will go to the bottom, but the 85 and the 25 almost could have cleared Paul Wilson themselves, so now Hogan and Nickerson become that new dynamic up there on the top.
You will have to see if the 25 is able to push his way up and jump down. And if he is, it wouldn't surprise me if Nickerson, and he is, he's going to jump down. Now, it wouldn't surprise me here if Nickerson decides that he's going to keep that outside lane working. I know from some of our test races that I've watched, even last night, I ran a race with these guys, and Nickerson, he's definitely a good pusher, a good driver, and not afraid to be anywhere out on the racetrack. So he may decide if he has enough help to either stay up on the outside line or go down to the inside, but not let the outside get out in front of him. He may switch it up between the two lines. I don't know. We'll have to see what he does now that he's the point man for that outside lane, being pushed by the 92 of Tony Hilbrands. As we got 3 wide here, the 89 of Paul Wilson down below the yellow line. It's going to be disastrous for him.
Dropping right off the pace. Yeah, not sure what his situation is. Don't know if he maybe overheated. I would imagine so. He's coming back on the track, but I guess just overshot the apex. He might cause an incident. Yeah, the 27 of, we're getting a crash up there in the back. I don't know what happened there to the 89, if it was an internet issue or what, but he caused a massive chain reaction there in the 20s to 30s area of the racing order.
Yeah, I believe he just got pushed down a little bit low, and it's so non-banked there below those yellow lines that you can't hold near the speed that you can above the yellow lines when you get through the corners. So it's definitely unfortunate for him, as he is going to drop back a good bit.
Yeah, a very good bit. Dropping all the way back by my estimation as he crosses the line to the, well below even where I can see it on the order. So presumably, yeah, the 25th spot. So you talked about, I think he was 3rd or 4th coming around the line last time by, drops 21 spots, and he appears to be still up to pace, but really the question mark is what happened there for the, I already forget his number, the 89 car there, Wilson. It was just a very bizarre circumstance.
And right now I'm showing the number 25 car of Benny Hogan, your current leader, with Cody Welch in 2nd and Nick Nickerson in 3rd. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting dynamic once we get back to this restart, because Nick Nickerson was the one that you saw pushing that outside lane with Tony Hilbrands. And with Nickerson in 3rd and Hilbrands in 4th, that's going to put Nickerson on the inside lane and Hilbrands on the outside. So definitely be interesting to see that, unless some of these drivers are coming down pit road, which they will. So I take it back. Nickerson is not going to be on the inside. Nickerson will be starting from the lead.
Evan, your screen is not showing everything. But
Real quick, we're going to head to a commercial while we're under caution, and we'll be back in a minute.
What's up, guys? If you're watching this, then you already know. Here at Evanwall Media is where I do my broadcasting.
5 laps to go. Brandon Jackson in the lead. Nick Nickerson. And he turns him. The 99 of Jackson gets turned by Nickerson.
But I bet you didn't know that I also do in-person photography and videography, as well as graphic design, including, but not limited to, iRacing paint schemes and posters. Check it all out over at evanwallmedia.com. Thank y'all, and you enjoy the race.
Are you looking for a clean, fun, and competitive iRacing league? Well, look no further than Bandit Racing League. This season features the Class B Xfinity Series cars in the Geezer Authentics Xfinity Series. Broadcast live every Wednesday by Evanwall Media, the season features a 10-race regular season schedule, followed by 10 more playoff races and an all-star race. So if you need something to do on Wednesday nights, then check us out at banditracingleague.com and send us a message if you're interested in joining. We accept racers with a D license or above, and it's free to join, so don't miss out. Alright, back from commercial, and we should be good to go now. Sorry about that. Back full screen now, so hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better. So while we're under caution here, lap 14 of 75, go ahead and put down in the comments, who do you think is going to win tonight here at Daytona? Of course, that's not kind of a crazy question at somewhere like Daytona, but who do you think it's going to be? It's a little bit harder to have an educated guess here, but
Sorry there, Evan. I'm just running with a bit, trying to get my my feed back up to speed. Right when we started having the issues, I dropped out for a second, but I'll be back momentarily.
no problem. Like I was saying, go ahead and put down in the comments, who do you think is going to win tonight? Try and leave the race on the larger screen here now. Leave it full screen. While we're under caution, though, we will head back to the Skype here for a second. The lights are out on the pace cars. We get ready to go back green here. Pace car diving down onto pit road. Let me remember to head back to full screen as we are green now. Lap 14 of 75 with the Bandit Racing League. Nick Nickerson out front with a big jump there. Bill Harkins up on the outside line. The 38 of Peter Murphy pushing the 2 of Nickerson. Not as much of a jumble here at the front as it was some of the other starts.
No, absolutely not. And a massive jump there from Nickerson in the 2 car there off the start. You saw the experience coming in handy there, but can't quite tell. But I think that's Murphy there up top on the top line is going to reform that outside line that was working a moment ago. Let's see if we can get some help there from that giant line coming in behind.
Yeah, Bill Harkins in the 11 car is going to try and, he's second car in line up on the outside. He's going to try and push, see if he can get himself up to the front. He's one of those drivers that, I believe it was Talladega last season that we saw him. He's a really good super speedway driver. He's a really good driver all around, but really he tends to run in the back and just focus on making sure that the race goes smoothly. But here he is up here at the front running in 4th right now, maybe trying to kind of show that he's a good driver and leave the run in the race to some of the other people. Move from the 99 of Brandon Jackson to the inside.
Yeah, Brandon Jackson, the guy that was making big waves there at the start, was trying to just hold spots and was moving backwards really that entire first section of the race. Let's see if he can make some progress now, starting to form up with that front pack again. But now that top line, Peter Murphy is now the new guy with the, well, you could argue very enviable job of taking care of that top line, because we've seen many guys go up front from that position. Big crash in behind. We're going to have our, I think, 2nd or 3rd caution of the night. But Alan Castle in the 16 is involved. I think Cody Welch might have got caught in that as well. I don't think he was able to avoid it, so that'll be another big contender. Yeah, huge damage to the 85 car. That's probably the biggest wreck we've seen all night so far, and it happens just immediately after a restart.
Did you see that big damage? We're going to head and jump back to an instant replay now. See, it looks like he just came up a little bit too high.
Yeah, just looked like a slight overcorrection in a 3 wide. Just guys trying to fight for the same spots and not quite being clear on where they wanted to go. So through the tri-oval, things can always get a little more insane when you're running quite as wide as they were there. But the biggest guy I think that was involved in that incident that I can tell, besides Cody Welch, who had a lot of pace in both our test race and his first heat, but also Benny Hogan, we saw up there at the front for a large portion of the start. He was involved quite heavily in that incident as well. So some big contenders there getting involved early, and I know that they have quick repairs, but top guys burning them up this early in the race. That could give us a very unpredictable top 10 there coming towards the end.
Yes, incidents for Alan Castle, Christopher Fiara, Rob St. Helen, Jason Rome, I'm sorry. Jason Greenwell, Michael Ramos, Marshall Moran. A lot of drivers with incidents there. And one thing that I think we need to mention is that if you run a race incident-free, then you get 5 bonus points per race that's incident-free. So definitely a big incentive to run an incident-free race here in this league.
Well, at this point, you want to talk about bonus points. Not only, I think, are a very few select set of guys left in this race still going to get that bonus there for the zero incident points, but also leading a lap gets you 1 point in this league, and I think that's a bonus that's just being handed out like Halloween candy. Several guys have already earned that title, as we see guys heading down pit road, including Nick Nickerson, your current leader, who up to this point had not pitted so far.
If you look at our preview, of course, Daytona Beach, Florida, 2.5 mile oval, 31-degree banking. And the fuel window here is about 20 laps, so I believe Nickerson, he didn't pit his first time, our first caution here, so it's right at his fuel window. Now that 20 laps is 20 laps not in the draft, so I don't know what it would be like for drivers that are in the draft. I'm not sure. Obviously, you're going to save fuel in the draft. That's a given, but not sure how much you could save. But the max out of the draft that you can go is 20 laps before you're going to be out of fuel. So that's why a lot of these drivers, you see them coming down pit road, but even though they're coming down pit road, most likely a lot of these drivers are just going to be gassing up. You've only got two extra sets of tires here today, plus the ones that you start on. So you're definitely going to want to conserve those in such a long 75-lap race.
Well, while we're looking at Nick Nickerson here, you want to talk about kind of us having a human tornado siren when it came to understanding how much chaos there was going to be. Nickerson, an experienced driver in this series, won several races in last season's campaign. Coming into tonight, he was, I think, 16 laps into the race before we came to the restart. So relatively far in, considering the fuel stints. And again, a very experienced driver. He said, I'm just going to stay up front and not pit this late in, assuming a caution would have to come up in the next 5 or 6 laps for him to make it on fuel. So he took the gamble there and bet on the fact that we'd have another incident in 5 or 6 laps. And that should kind of go to tell you exactly how chaotic this is at least going to be from a driver who's been around for a while's perspective. So that should kind of give us a good inkling of what kind of race we're going to see, at least for the next little bit, while guys burn up quick repairs.
We're going to head back to where you can see Skype. You can also see a full list of the driver rundowns. I can't tell if y'all can see that. Lights are off on the pace car, 1 to go. See a triple screen here instead of double screen. Just gives you a little bit more information. You can see all the drivers' names if you can, but that's just gives you a little bit of glimpse of what I'm looking at behind the scenes. Thought it might be a neat little addition to add to the broadcast, what the behind the scenes looks like.
Benjamin Lacey, we saw him get the free pass there into the feature. Didn't have to enter into the heat races there. Came away, of course, second. Couldn't quite take the pole and the bonus points that come with it. But he's been up front pretty much the entire race. But Carson Jones is kind of a new name, at least to me, in tonight's events. Haven't really seen him much there up front, but he started 18th up to second. I presume he's already pitted for fuel, so he might be having his pit stops all figured out, and has moved up 16 spots in only, I think, 18 laps, or sorry, 20 laps, I should say. So pretty productive race tonight so far for Carson Jones in the 5 car.
Yeah, Carson Jones has pitted. He pitted 7 laps ago, and one thing that I think is going to be interesting as you talk about people who have pitted and people who haven't, if you look in 5th and 6th positions, Victor Weaver and Kim Janer have not pitted today. And as I said, a fuel window here not in the draft is 20 laps, and they're on lap 20 right now. So it'll be interesting to see how far the 23 and the 82 car will be able to last before they're going to have to come in the pits again. They may be betting that there's going to be another caution as the pace car is off and we're going green. Here again, the 7 car of Benjamin Lacey leading us to the green, being pushed by the 99 of Brandon Jackson.
And immediately that top line doesn't nearly work as well as it has on a couple other restarts so far tonight. I mean, Carson Jones, just talked about him, gets absolutely hung out to dry, but that 3-car pack up front, that is Benjamin Lacey, Brandon Jackson, and Matt Clark. Matt Clark, kind of a new face up there to the top of the field, 65 car, a guy I know pretty well from some road course side of things. He used to run in a series I put together, but he's got a lot of road course experience. I don't know quite as much about his oval pass, but we'll see if he's able to maybe do something in a very unique scenario. The first time we've had such a long single file line up there at the front.
Obviously doing fairly well on at least super speedway since he's sitting in 3rd place right now. It'll be interesting to see how that 65 car does throughout the race. Brandon Jackson looking to the outside, but he seems to be the only one that wants to make something happen, at least in this front little group on the outside. A little bit of a bump there.
Looks like, yeah, Carson Jones might go up with him to give him some help. He's got experience running up there at the top, at least to start off tonight. But Nick Nickerson, instead, the guy that was just leading this thing, is going to go up. And the guy that was on the pole, and the guy that I think would probably have led the most laps so far, now teaming up there on the top line. So, you got some star power working up there up top. But still, Benjamin Lacey, your current leader, heading into 3.
Yeah, if they could get a little bit more help, that'll definitely be a dangerous duo right there. The 99 of Brandon Jackson and the 2 of Nick Nickerson. Definitely 2 fast drivers, but we'll see how long they can last, only being 2 cars up there on the outside line.
Yeah, still getting no help there. That car in 6th place. We know Carson Jones doesn't seem to want to move up, but that's Kim Janer there in the 82. Doesn't look like he wants to go give him some help either, but really the furthest we've seen that front pack break away all race. I mean, 5 cars kind of dominating so far, and my biggest worry now becomes, are the cars in behind going to be able to stay on the draft? Because if they can't, and we don't get a caution for a while, this could become a very different race.
Another thing that may become interesting to see, these 5 cars right here. Oh, as we got trouble back behind him. At least 1 car down into the infield.
We do indeed, trying to tell who that would have been. Looks like a black and purple car of sorts, trying to think of who would fit that description.
Not sure who it was, but I think we should be under caution here now.
It appears to be the 23 car Victor Weaver there. Actually, a bronze and black Duracell entry, I should say.
We'll see if we can head to an instant replay and see what happened.
Huh. Actually, just looking at the replay, a really weird piece of collision. It looks like some sort of maybe a netcode situation, but it looks like he made perfect side contact with the car up top to the outside. Let's see who exactly that was, because they might have minor damage as well. But yeah, 2 cars just making side-by-side contact, and Weaver took a massive bounce off of him into the infield. So not sure what happened there, but a very weird situation, and one that I think Weaver was able to save. Don't believe he hit the wall there. So the 23 car may have gotten in an incident and brought out our 3rd caution of the night, but he will still be in tonight's proceedings going forward, at least if this incident is anything we go off of.
I'm not able to find it here on the broadcast. Sorry about that. But you saw him down on the inside line. Nevertheless, doesn't look like he has too much damage, and especially if he has a fast repair left, he should still be able to use that and be good to go.
Well, speaking of the inside line, with a number of cars taking what you could call the tri-oval inside line, that being pit road, several of the leaders, including Benjamin Lacey, Nick Nickerson came in as well, Brandon Jackson, your pole sitter. So several guys deciding to come in and maybe are starting to more and more take the chance that we won't have a caution for a little while, and that it's opportune they have the most fuel they possibly can. Because, well, if you think about it in the grand scheme of a 75-lap race, 20-lap fuel stint really isn't insanely long, especially with how many cautions we're going to get. That going to put guys in kind of awkward spots when it comes to trying to plan out a path to the end, and it's maybe showing something that the more experienced guys up there are deciding to make the move to pit road earlier rather than later. But still a very interesting top 2 here. Bill Harkins has made his way all the way up to 2nd, so kind of a feel-good story there, coming from pretty far back in the field there, and 20th on the start of the race. But himself and Matt Clark, I just talked about a moment ago, but he also did finish 2nd in the I think the test race that happened the other day, maybe last week. So some guys that have some experience in this series and in multiple ways. Of course, Matt Clark a lot newer, but now it's time to see what he can do, not only taking the bonus point for leading a lap, but now becoming the control car for this next restart.
So you can see on your standings on the left side of your screen here, Matt Clark pitted 12 laps ago, only one that has pitted that far back. Bill Harkins, Wesley Fuller pitted 6 laps ago. So did Michael Ramos, Eddie Hagge, Ricky Hart Jr., and a lot of these drivers pitting right now. So some of these drivers, it'll be interesting to see what Matt Clark does if there's not a caution soon, because really, to have pitted 13 laps ago and not come in again right now, you have to be obviously assuming that there's going to be another caution before long, and I'm sure there will be, but hopefully the time doesn't run out before you need gas, because if you do, you've got to make a green flag pit stop, and if you're one of the only ones who's made a green flag pit stop, then that's definitely going to slow you down.
Right, absolutely, and now it becomes a question of thinking strategy to the end. You got to start working if you're part of a team dynamic here that some of the guys are. Now's where you'd start strategizing with the other guys around you and maybe start to work up drafting packs, because if we get a long green flag stint and guys start to work away, which we're not going to have these little tiny group together packs the entirety of the race. Eventually, we're going to see big groups start to form and separate. And once that happens, the team's got to have a plan to form up and make sure that they aren't left out alone and scared there on the track by themselves. You got to have some drafting buddies if you want to keep up the pace. So now it becomes a very interesting dynamic to see who has help and who doesn't. One more important thing to note before we go back to the start of the green flag here: Brant Graham in the number 98 car gets an end of the line penalty and does not appear to be in the session anymore, at least not by my own eyeballs. So every car behind the sixth place car on our timing of Brant Graham should gain a spot on this next restart.
All right, and the lights are out on the pace car. The number 65 of a Matt Clark is going to lead us to green on the inside line, with the number 11 of Bill Harkins to the outside. Pace car's off, green flag is out, and we're back racing. Lap 26 of 75. Big jump for the 65 car of Matt Clark.
Absolutely. It looked like Bill Harkins had a little bit of trouble there, kind of spun the tires there on the restart, and that's going to give the 35 of Wesley Fuller an opportunity to make the move up there to the inside, kind of the right-hand man there now for the 65 of Clark. He's going to have to be his drafting buddy, but Cody Welch in there as well. Now Jackson will move up to the top line a little ways back, so might have a good 3-on-3 now coming down the backstretch.
38 of Peter Murphy doing a great job of pushing the 11 of Bill Harkins. Brandon Jackson in the 99 joining up with him in the top side lane as well now too.
Yeah, Peter Murphy there in the 38 car, been doing some great work from the drafting perspective, and what a story it would be. I know we're early in the race, but Bill Harkins is definitely putting his name in the hat there to compete for that top spot. What a story it would be for Bill Harkins to win the first race of this new season, but that Clark, Fuller, and Welch line on the bottom there, they're making things work, and they seem a lot more uniform than a couple of those other teams have. So unless Harkins can get a great push and wants to make the aggressive move down to the bottom, I think this may be the way things go for the next foreseeable couple of months.
Yeah, the outside lane is a little bit uneven. The 38 car of Peter Murphy, he seems to be poking his nose up to the outside of Harkins, and not anymore, but he was. And Brandon Jackson and Nick Nickerson, they're both staying a little bit lower than he is. So, yeah, it definitely wouldn't surprise me to see the 99 and the 2 jump down and leave the 38 on the outside. But we'll have to see if he keeps poking his nose back up to the outside.
Side by side again there at the line. I know it's a little bit early again to be saying this, but it almost gets to a point late enough in the race where if you're getting a good enough push through the tri-oval that you pass the car on the inside as the outside car that is currently Bill Harkins. And speaking of the outside, Jackson will jump away from it down at the bottom to become the fourth car on the inside. But if you can get a good enough push there into the tri-oval, you can win the race from that outside line. So something to think about going forward. 2 cars are going to drop down to the apron as well. I think that's the 27 of Ramos. Another car a little ways back as well that I can't quite identify. So interesting, the second time we've seen that, I think it was Paul Wilson that did it earlier. So not sure what the case is there, but he'll head to the back, and now we'll have quite the job to do, especially with no caution if he wants to make his way back up to the front.
Yeah, some of these guys, they may be betting on a caution. They may not have liked where they were at in the pack. I mean, if you're somewhere in the pack, you may not be able to work your way up. You may not even be able to work your way back or to the inside or the outside. So you may think that you're about to get caught up in an accident. Your best move is just to drop below that yellow line and hang out in the back for the inevitable caution that will probably be there at some point in time, whether it be in the next few laps or a little bit longer than that. And here it is right now, the 35 spinning down into the infield. It's going to be Wesley Fuller down hitting the inside wall. I also saw the 81 car spinning. So we'll head to an instant replay.
You could not have called that any better.
We'll head to an instant replay and see if we can see exactly how it happened. The 35 of Wesley Fuller being pushed by the 85 of Cody Welch. Down there on the inside line, the second and third cars on the inside line. See if we can watch it one more time from a little bit of a different angle here. Again, watching the 35 of Wesley Fuller. That 11 is Bill Harkins on his outside. Looks like the 35 of Fuller jumped up in front of the 11 of Bill Harkins, and it may have just been a little bit closer than he thought, because he went around off the nose of Harkins.
Yeah, kind of crowd surfed his way across from Harkins to Cody Welch as well. So not sure if the very competitive all-night 85 car has any damage, but he certainly had a, quite fast, quite heavy NASCAR Xfinity car riding along his head. Looks like a little bit of cosmetic damage, but Cody Welch should be okay. But yeah, that was just a really weird one of those situations where it's kind of all about miscommunication, wrong place, wrong time. And it's going to shake up the order a little bit as well, because when you have these instant cautions and the two lines are so out of symmetry, it does certainly create some interesting situations. And now as Matt Clark, your current race leader, heads down into pit road, Bill Harkins will be your top driver that doesn't decide to pit. So if he doesn't do so in the next couple laps, Bill Harkins will be your new race leader.
Yeah, in that last incident points for Trey Ellis, Lane Brown, Jason Rome, Brandon Trogdon, Wesley Fuller, of course, Cody Welch, Bill Harkins, all those with 4X incident points. Alan Castle with a 1X incident point. So if you're new to iRacing, you don't know about the incident point system, you can get a 4X incident point. That's like most contact will be a 4X incident point. If it's any contact, a 1X is just a little tap or something like that. Bump drafting like that isn't an incident point. You get a 0X for that. But 1X is just a tiny little tap. 2X, of course, just a little bit more than that, but nothing major. And then 4X is a large incident, a hard hit, in most cases, at least. So most of those drivers getting 4 incident points. And there is a max on the incident points tonight. I'm not sure how many it is. Let me see. The incident limit is going to be 25 incident points. So if these drivers rack up 25 incident points here in the race, then they will be automatically disqualified.
Yeah, chances are in that situation, you'd probably run out of quick repairs before you'd get that many, or at least I'd hope so. So the guys that are kind of sitting there in the middle of the incident limit, like Lane Brown, Victor Weaver, that have been involved in a couple of incidents outside of their control, the chances are they'll probably run out of quick repairs before they hit that limit, but it is always something to look out for if you keep making little contacts with other drivers. And usually iRacing's pretty lenient with the stock car, cup car side of things. They don't tend to call too much in that respect, but if we do see that, then it could shake up the course of the race, because like you just mentioned, so many guys have gotten a couple over the course of the race. I will ask very quickly, though, Evan, I know you have a little bit more telemetry than I do. Ricky Hart Jr. there in the 64 car, the defending race winner from last season, he is sitting in second right now on the outside line. What is his situation like on fuel? Because he was quite a ways back there in that last restart. He's gained quite a couple spots in this one. I'm just curious if it is legitimately for position.
Yeah, Ricky Hart Jr. and Bill Harkins both, they pitted 14 laps ago, so Paul Wilson and Carson Jones only pitted 8 laps ago. James Healy, he pitted 14 laps ago as well. Trey Ellis, Matt Crockett, Kim Janer pitted 7, 8, 9 laps ago. And then the longest without pitting is back down in 10th position. The 06 car of Rob St. Helen has pitted 20 laps ago. So, to answer your question, Ricky Hart Jr. and Bill Harkins have both pitted 14 laps ago, so they will be needing fuel soon. But again, just hoping that there is going to be a caution in the next, let's say, 10 laps so that they can pit at that stop instead of this one. And most likely what they're hoping is that they can stay up here out front until that happens and they need to pit. That way they'll most likely be out of the trouble.
Yeah, I don't mean to at all disrespect any drivers in the field, but if I was putting money on the fact that we'd have maybe another incident within that period of time where they would need to pit, I'd say that is probably money well spent. It's been one of those sorts of races, but Daytona always is.
Yeah, probably so. Not only Daytona, but especially Daytona, when the drivers don't know each other and haven't raced with each other a lot, it's definitely going to be a wild race. And speaking of that, the pace car with his lights off head onto pit road, and Bill Harkins leads us to the green flag here, lap 33 of 75, with Ricky Hart Jr. on his outside.
Yeah, the battle up front there, the front of those two lines, it's the director versus the defending champion, which sounds more like a tail of the tape in boxing than anything, but they are doing their very best to get their respective lines to work, and that's the 89 car, I think, there of Paul Wilson, a guy who was having a great race earlier before a mysterious drop back there in the inside line. So is this his time to maybe head back there up to the front? He's working with probably, you could argue, the best in the business, or at least the best in the series from last season.
3 wide here now, the 39 being hung out to dry on the outside. It's Matt Crockett and Brandon Jackson able to get by him. They will join that outside lane up there.
Looks like Brandon Jackson, your pole sitter, is getting really comfortable with those awkward situations. He keeps intentionally putting himself into 3 wides, and sometimes it's working and sometimes it's not. But it's good to see guys testing out moves that they might try to use later in the race, and it's definitely something to scope out if you're a fan of one of these drivers that you keep seeing swerving around and off the traditional 2 lines.
Yeah, Brandon Jackson tends to go by the nickname Action Jackson, and he has that nickname for a reason. He's always on the edge of his seat, or you're always on the edge of your seat watching him. He's great driving a loose race car or just any race car that is not in a great position. Definitely a good driver when the race or the race car is out of control. So definitely one to watch. You see the 92 of Tony Hilbrands, I believe. Is that who's in the 92? Yes, the 92 of Tony Hilbrands working his way up to the front with a huge run right there.
He gained 8 spots in that lap. Like, he just shot himself right up the middle there. And if you ever want a glowing advertisement that strategy can work, it just did for the 92 at Tony Hilbrands. Great move for him, and now he becomes the car leading that outside line that has worked at times and hasn't in others, but he's got the pole sitter. Once again, Brandon Jackson helping him, but further back in the field, Welch makes contact with somebody. Many drivers involved. Once again, we talked about probably in the next couple laps we might see another incident, and we just did. Welch involved, Hogan involved, and many more.
Speaking of that, we will head to an instant replay, see if we can see what happened following the 85 car of Cody Welch. See 3 wide up in front of him a little bit. Just loses it a little bit through the corner and takes out a couple of guys with him. Just unlucky there for some of those, just getting caught up in it, but that's how Daytona works. And that's really going to work out well for some of these drivers who needed that caution.
Yeah, Bill Harkins, and I think you mentioned Brandon Jackson as well as Ricky Hart are guys that'll definitely benefit from that incident. And that really speaks to just how good of a race these guys are having, because not only to have prime pit opportunities, but also just to be flat out running super quick up top. Bill Harkins didn't seem to have any issues and is making the right calls when it comes to strategy. So if he can keep that up throughout the rest of the race and keep pitting at opportune times, that might be all he needs to keep the track position he needs to give himself the win to start off his own season.
Definitely a smart driver in the number 11 car. Just only a couple drivers heading down pit road that time, I believe.
I think this will be the time we start to see the real big names come in. Yeah, everybody's starting to drop down below the line there, including, I think that's, Carson Jones there sitting in second, a guy that we've talked about periodically throughout the race, but just continues to kind of sit within that area there in that nationwide number 5 car on my screen. So he's doing good work, but now the question becomes who stayed out. I noticed a couple of cars way back in the field are going to continue to drive on track, so I think we might see a return of some former top names, as well as Benjamin Lacey's up there, Nick Nickerson as well. But who is your current race leader? I think Matt Clark will be your top car there in the number 65 that stayed out. So he was your race leader a couple restarts ago and will be your leader once again, provided he doesn't pit.
Tony Hilbrands, your first car off pit road.
Man, what a couple laps that Tony Hilbrands has had. I mean, you talk about that huge move once again that he made up there through the middle just a couple laps back. And that's something from my perspective, having watched quite a few of these races on broadcast, speaking of the super speedway style, that's one thing you always notice really early for your eventual race winner is it's not necessarily the guy that's up front the entire time, but it's the guy that is willing to test stuff early and is willing to make that big move there at the end, and about having confidence in that big move and saying, okay, I've done this before. I know I can do it again tonight. Now Tony Hilbrands has done something crazy, made 9 passes in 1 lap. Let's see now. I know he's a ways back, but if he can make his way back up there again and make something like that happen, we could see a Daytona, what was that, 2019, with the big fancy Denny Hamlin finish. We could see a situation like that happening again where we have a great finish to the end, and it could be Hilbrands coming out on top.
Yeah, Bill Harkins with a little bit of a slower pit stop. Now, of course, it had been longer since he pitted, so you wonder if all that time was just spent just putting gas in it, or if he took tires as well, because with 2 extra sets of tires, I'm not sure exactly how much that's really going to help you here at Daytona, but you wonder what the strategy is, if drivers are putting them on now, if they're saving both sets for a little bit later, if they've already used one maybe. Who knows what the strategy is going to be there as far as tires go.
It's a whole jumble of cars over there on pit road. Doesn't look like a couple cars are going to come down, but that further back in the pack there is kind of jumbled around. Almost looks like iRacing's having a bit of a timing and scoring issue. So hopefully those guys get that figured out and everybody's in the proper order when they regroup there in the 2 lines. But I'll ask you quickly, Evan, before we got a lap to go before the restart. So you're the guy that's been around the series for a long time. You probably know the drivers better than I. Of the guys left in this race, not necessarily up front, but who is like the one X factor guy coming in? Who is that Denny Hamlin like in the real life NASCAR races where you always got to watch out for him at the end because he can make big moves happen and put himself up there in the top spot?
Well, I haven't been here as long as some of these guys have. I've only been here, last season was my first season, but if it's any guy, I would definitely have to say Brandon Jackson is always one to watch for, of course, but he does it through the whole race. One guy who I say you definitely have to watch for is the 8 car of Kevin Foster, sitting in 24th position right now. He's always there at the end of the race. He's one of those guys that all last season, I would never say his name the whole broadcast. He would be down somewhere, middle of the pack, bottom of the pack, just hanging out. Then as soon as we get to the end of the race, it's like he just flips the switch on, and there he is up front, all of a sudden ready to win the race, sitting in the top 5. So he's definitely one of those drivers that he's always there at the end.
Right here, the super speedways, that's always the bare minimum you got to do if you want to be the race winner, and from there it's about making the big moves. I remember he was a very active part of our test race last week. He was making some good moves there, so as the pace car takes the left-hander onto pit road, let's see what he's able to do in this restart, maybe make up that spot from 24th, but it'll be Clark and Lacey here getting the green flag here in both lines. Both going to get a pretty equal jump, but Clark has got the defending second place in the points sitter from last year, Mr. Nick Nickerson, pushing him.
Big push from the number 2 car of Nick Nickerson on Matt Clark. And a move from the 99 of Brandon Jackson as he dives down to the inside line. He's back in 8th position right now.
Back in that top section of the race order is the 49 of Lane Brown, a guy that started 37th there at the restart. Almost didn't make it into the feature based on spots, but since then he has made up a considerable amount of ground. And now's the question. You remember there, Evan, we saw the kind of leapfrog game we were playing there at the beginning where the cars on the outside would jump down to the inside. Let's see if maybe the 49 and the 7 can group up, or this inside line is just going to take off based on how uniform they've been to start this stint.
Seven car Benjamin Lacey is doing everything that he can, being pushed by the 49 of Lane Brown. Now on your screen, on the broadcast screen here, the 49 of Lane Brown is going to be in the 4 car. That is just an issue with the wrong paint loading, but that white number 4 car that you're seeing, we will refer to as the 49 of Lane Brown. But Nickerson able to push Matt Clark, a great pusher, hasn't allowed Tony Hilbrands up there on the outside line to be able to gain any ground.
No, very interesting choice from Tony Hilbrand's to go up top, especially seeing how well he was working with the 65 and the 2 car there at the start. They had a good dynamic going to pull away from the guys on the outside, but I mean, Tony Hilbrand thinks it's where he's better put. That's, I mean, more power to him. It's always good to see guys trying to maybe get a little bit work around the problem rather than just sit in the uniform kind of inside line they had there. But now it looks like the inside line once again is forming up. Trey Ellis, who's been up front all race, is going to move up to that catbird seat number 3 spot after that original pairing. So maybe he'll move up and go with Hilbrand's as well, or he's just going to stick with the objectively easier bottom line.
Jackson looking to the top lane now, trying to join Hilbrand's, and he's going to do it. Looking to make the move on Trey Ellis. Hoping that he gets a little bit more of a push than he has, but Nickerson out front doing a great job of pushing Matt Clark to keep them out in front of everyone.
Yeah, bold moves as well by Jackson to go up top as well. Your pole sitter knows he can get some flat out pace, knows how to hug the inside based on how he would have had to run in qualifying. So bold that he's going to go up to the top line, now going to run side by side with Trey Ellis. But really the field is in Matt Clark's hands right now. He can take whatever line he wants, and we could see the first leader of the race go up to block that top line, because as we come out of 4, they got some real horsepower and momentum working there through the as we come up towards the tri-oval.
Brandon Jackson and Tony Hilbrand's have that outside lane working, and the number 7 car of Benjamin Lacey trying to join them as well. He's a little bit further behind. So is Bill Harkins. He's a little bit further behind, but he's trying to get that draft off of the outside lane and gain a couple of spots on the top side.
Well, they're already this far up as we come out of 2, and the backstretch is always where we see huge momentum by the spots on the outside. So now we see, Jackson's going to clear entirely. Is he going to take over the top of the inside line? He will indeed. So he'll move down. Hilbrand's almost tries to make it 2 of them, but now guys are going to start splitting up. All the chaos happens when somebody makes the move that Jackson just did. So we'll see if guys can regroup, and now Hilbrand's becomes that number 1 car there on the top.
Jackson and Hilbrand's were working great together. We'll see if the 7 car of Benjamin Lacey can push Hilbrand's as well as Hilbrand's was able to push Jackson. And that's definitely one dynamic here on the super speedways. There are some guys that are great at pushing and being pushed, but there are some guys that aren't good at one or aren't good at the other. They're really two different animals, pushing and being pushed. So you can be great at one and not great at the other, or you can be great at both of them. It all just depends on the driver and what you're really more comfortable with.
Yeah, I'd certainly say in my own experience I'm much better at one than the other, but I'll leave that up to a mystery for those that in this series that I ever race against in one of these tracks. But for the time being, that inside line has started to regroup once again. Hilbrand's doesn't have nearly the run that he would have got, but Matt Clark is going to go up to the top. Besides, that's his best play. Maybe going to try to get Hilbrand, who he knows has experience up there on the top, to help him, and he's doing so. Look at the run the 65 is going to get. Might be able to clear Jackson into turn 1, the earliest we've seen from anybody in this lap.
A really bold move for Matt Clark, but it's working out for him right now, as the 92 is obviously a great pusher, but I don't think what he anticipated is that now he's put the 99 of Brandon Jackson right in front of the 2 of Nick Nickerson. 2 very great cars pushing and being pushed. So he may have ultimately set himself up in a bad spot, putting the 99 and the 2 right next to each other.
Well, he's a new face to the series. If there's anybody that wouldn't know the beast he may have awoken just now in that tandem, it would be him. But he was quick before, and as long as he can keep himself steady there, getting pushed by the 92, he'd be able to take over his top spot once again.
And it looks like some of the drivers are starting to abandon the inside lane for the outside. It's getting a little more spread out down there on the bottom, as there's a little bit of a gap from the 5 back to Trey Ellis. And then Lane Brown, there's a little bit of a gap back to the next car.
That lap car there, the 06, was having a little bit of issues there trying to stay off the wall, so it looked like we got a little bit chaotic and bottleneck there for a moment. But yeah, to your point, I know that guys are starting to regroup now as we come down the straightaways, but it's kind of starting to seem like that inside line is so 15 laps ago by their standards, because nobody's really heading down there. I mean, right as I say it, it seemed like you were kind of the Nostradamus there a moment ago predicting cautions, and immediately as I say guys head to the top, well, everybody heads back to the bottom. So maybe I'll leave the predictions there to your side.
It's just everybody trying to find the run wherever they can, whether it be the top or the bottom. If they've got a run and a move, then they're going to take it. If they see a hole, you got to go for it. So the outside lane was moving, so everybody started out, hopped up to the outside. Then the inside lane started moving a little bit. The outside got cluttered up. Everybody back down to the inside.
I almost wonder if it's a case of, like the personalities leading each line. Like you talk about how Nick Nickerson has been doing some great pushing, but also some great work up top. They're going to have to split the middle there with a lap car. Everybody, I think, makes it through. I don't see any chaos in there in the background. So everybody, yeah, wow, great job by everybody to react there on the fly. That lap car there through the middle was kind of putting some chaos and things, but it's going to shake up the front order. Look at the 92 now. Talk about the big move he made it there before. He sent it 3 wide there momentarily. He's going to lose a little bit of momentum, but that, from Matt Clark's perspective, you're probably wondering now, okay, my drafting buddy just tried to pull a major 3 wide move on me through the tri-oval. Maybe I got to find myself a new partner and move down into the bottom line if I want to survive till the end.
Yeah, Hilbrand's definitely very aggressive here. They're 49 laps down out of 75. So he may be looking 3 wide again here, and Daytona's really all about trust. So now I wonder if Matt Clark he may be wondering, can he trust him? Is the next time he gets a run, is he going to head up to the outside, or is he going to actually help to push him? The main thing that you don't want here at a super speedway is being hung out to dry. You don't want your drafting partner to just leave you. So with only 3 drivers up there on the outside line, I'm sure that's got to be something that Matt Clark is worried about. But at the moment, there's nothing that he can do about it. He's just got to do his very best to keep Tony Hilbrands behind him. Even if he jumps to the outside, you kind of have to block for, say, just so that there's still somebody behind you and you don't get left out to dry, because he definitely can't move down at the moment.
That was getting the push that he would have wanted a moment ago from Hilbrands. Hilbrands giving him a great shove there coming out of 2, so he's going to go stay side by side. Actually, not quite the run I thought he would have got there, judging by the push, but well, you want to talk about trust there and how that may be broken with the 2 guys up top there at the front. Well, you talk about the 2 guys on the inside, that being Brandon Jackson and Nick Nickerson. They've been hooked at, well, not the hip, but back to front the entirety of the last 20 laps, so I know this may be my first race live, right as we see Hilbrand's going to send it 3 wide. Oh, gets into Clark. Not 3 wide. The alternative worse option, the 2 guys making contact, and it was only a matter of time with how close they were running and how, I keep using the word, but non-uniform they were compared to the inside line. I think it was only a matter of time before we saw something like that happen.
As we watch the instant replay, as we're under yellow right now following the 65 of Matt Clark. Tony Hilbrand's right behind him. He moved down to the inside line, and the inside moved up, not necessarily knowing that it was 3 wide. That's just the problem with quick moves like that. If you're on the inside lane, it takes a second for your spotter to relay the information that you're now 3 wide on the inside. The inside lane moves up just a little bit to side draft, try and gain some positions, and all of a sudden there's not any more room to move up, and you're causing a wreck that's going to take out half of the field.
Well, it looked to me as well that there was a lap car sitting on the inside there as we came through the tri-oval, and I think it was a case as well that the 3 lines had to condense themselves into 2 to go around them, and they did it great a moment ago when a car went through the middle, but when you got a car on the inside, and the inside line's got to come off their precious apron and move up to the middle, that top line's got to find a place to go, and with Hilbrand's picking maybe an inopportune time in that sense to go up to the middle, it meant that well, we had a very awkward situation with track position, and in turn we have quite a couple of guys that are going to need to use a quick repair on this next restart.
Yeah, hopefully they have quick repairs left, as Brandon Jackson, your leader right now. One of the things that I want to go ahead and bring up, a couple of these drivers, if you really look at license classes, I don't know how well you guys on the broadcast can see my top left screen. If you look at the standings, all those little blue boxes on the right, that's because most of these drivers are A-class drivers. There's a couple of green boxes telling you that they're B-class. One yellow box that's a C-class driver. Then we've got some orange D-class drivers, because this league is open to A through D-class drivers here on iRacing. And so the couple of D-class drivers include the 65 of Matt Clark, and then Carson W. Jones, the number 5 car in 30th position. Just kind of shows you how even if you're A, B, C, or D class, you can still run up front with these guys. Matt Clark has been a great driver and running great up front, even though he's a D class. That just kind of shows you that the iRacing rating system, it doesn't necessarily mean, of course, the A class drivers are going to be good, but that doesn't mean that some of the B, C, and D class drivers are going to be bad. Just a little point that I thought I would bring up real quick.
Well, often when I see that in contexts like this, looking at guys that, as you say, maybe come in with a lower license, if they're running quick in races like these, and I know, obviously it's Daytona. Daytona is a very separate, universe and a situation to the rest of the season. But if you think about guys that are quick running a D class, that seems to suggest to you that they have less experience in iRacing and thus a little bit more, well, I hate to say natural talent, but like coming in with a lot of experience in other things. And that's almost, from my perspective as a driver, scarier than just somebody who's been on iRacing a long time, knows this particular sim really well. So in some cases, it could actually be a better sign that a guy has a lower license and is still running as quick as the top guys. So just some food for thought from that perspective that I've had in the past.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a different way to look at it and a good way to think about it.
But again, it does say something. The number I usually go off of traditionally is iRating, which I also think is more of a testament to how long people have been on as well. You don't just show up. You can win your first 20 races at a D class, and it's always very difficult to build up your iRating. So that's one thing that's always important to look at. But when you have a series like this, like watching guys I've seen tonight and knowing my experience in running NASCAR series of any discipline, whether it be Xfinity or normal, that's also a very good sign that a lot of these guys are going to have a lot of success, whether in a league like this or whether out of one. So I think league racing as well is very different to just hopping into an iRacing official session. So I think the question is, are guys more used to a different situation, especially here at these bigger ovals where you run an official and you can't really trust a lot of people. Most people aren't mic'd. You can't really communicate with those around you. Whereas you come in with a team dynamic like this, where maybe you know a lot of the drivers, maybe you have existing connections, it's a whole new ball game. So it is interesting to note that the drivers' backgrounds as it pertains to iRating and safety rating, it can change how they approach the race. And it's something that I think would be interesting to ask drivers, though I probably wouldn't come up to a D driver in an interview and say, wow, you have a very low license compared to the rest of the field. What's that like? So maybe that's a question for another day.
Yeah, that would definitely be a little bit of an awkward question to ask, but I definitely hear what you're saying. Lights are out on the pace car now, though. Brandon Jackson going to lead us to green, and the number 2 car of Nick Nickerson going to be starting right behind him in 3rd position here on the inside line. So definitely I expect a good start there on the bottom. 99 going to be pushed by the 2. But we'll see if the outside line can hang in there. We got Benjamin Lacey and Eddie Hagge up on the top. Definitely 2 good drivers that we've seen, both of them up front as well. So this could be one of the more interesting restarts here tonight. Here on lap 54 of 75 here at Daytona International Speedway.
It is really crazy how things come full circle. You talk about how crazy of a race we've had, how many cautions we've had, but even after all this, coming to lap 55, our 2 top pole sitters are back at the front. So same spots, same order. Let's see if we'll have a similar situation to the initial race start. Green flag coming out in just a moment. It will go out now. So on the loud pedal are both the top 2 and the rest of the field. Nick Nickerson back with his old buddy, the 99 at Jackson. See if they can reform that dynamic. But we got Eddie Hagge in the 97 off to a good start as well. He was a guy that we talked about a lot in the heats, and we'll see if he can carry that same speed into the real finish of the race.
Benjamin Lacey falling back a little bit now because he's kind of the lone car up front on the outside line. 3 wide a little bit further back.
I was going to say, perhaps my eyes deceived me, but I thought I saw a car in the background there go off, or at least a cloud of smoke. So going to have yet another caution, and we've had quite a slew of them lately, but it looks like the front pack isn't to blame. Everybody seemed to get pretty set and pretty in order. Let's try to tell who that was. By my calculations, it was Wesley Fuller in the 35, but I cannot confirm that yet.
See if we can get a look at him here on the broadcast.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be the 35 of Wesley Fuller and the 44 of Cale Zook, which, cool name, by the way, are going to be the 2 drivers that are out in that incident. It looks like just the 2 of them really just kind of tapped together, kind of running by themselves in the line, and that sent them around. So the rest of the field will be exempt, which is good to see this late in the race. You hate for guys to get involved in an incident that is not by fault of their own and taken out this late in the event.
At the instant replay now, we're going to re-watch that start. Looking a little bit further back, we'll be watching the 35 of Wesley Fuller. See if we can speed it up just a little bit. May have gone just a few seconds back a little bit too far.
Yeah, it would have been just the first time at a corner 2.
So here's the pace car diving off, and we're going to rewatch that start. Looking at 35 of Wesley Fuller, you can see on the inside of him is the 10 of Matt Crockett. Directly in front of him, he has Trey Ellis.
Yeah, and you want to keep an eye on the 44 car. I'm not sure if he shows up with that number on track, but that, yeah, you saw they go 3 wide in behind him right there for a quick sec. But yeah, that's the 44 car there, the black and red car on the inside line.
So it looks to me as if the 35 of Wesley Fuller may have not known that 44 car was down there below him. Just got a little bit too low. The 44 got a little bit too high under the 35, and that's what happens. Just drivers not necessarily, things happening so fast, drivers not necessarily knowing where everyone is on track.
Well, it's back to one of the points I talked about before this race started, was the awareness aspect of knowing exactly where guys are in reference to you. And it's not like the NASCAR Heat video games where you have that little sensor, or at least I think they used to have it, where it's a little sensor that shows you where cars are 360 degrees around you. You don't really get that on iRacing. It's part of the authentic experience, but it also makes it much tougher to judge distances. And it's one thing I think will separate the top guys from some of the newer faces. And speaking of top guys, back to the front, Nick Nickerson will once again take a restart. I think this will be his 3rd time starting on the from the lead position throughout the race, but he's just kind of been up there all day. But another guy I noticed is getting a lot of love there in the YouTube chat as well. Lane Brown has got quite a bit of support. I know I'm going to call him the 49 car, but he's the 4 in the white car on your screen. He's going to take the start to the outside of Mr. Nickerson. He's not a guy we've seen out front so far all that much this race, but he will have Matt Crockett, pretty notorious outside line pusher there in the number 10 car. So I know the connection up there up front between Nick Nickerson and basically whoever he's driving against at any given moment. Well, we may have a new pretty good duo forming up there on the top.
Yeah, Matt Crockett has definitely liked that outside lane for sure. Definitely feels right at home here. Every driver either prefers the inside or the outside, and it's obvious that the 10 car likes that outside. It's definitely good for him that he's starting up there. Always lucky when you're in your preferred line.
Yeah, something we haven't seen yet, but coming to the end, if a guy like Matt Crockett is in the lead position towards the end, we saw it in our test race a couple weeks back, but sometimes there will be situations where drivers do elect to take the top line because they think with the jump they'll be able to clear the car to the bottom and it'll just be a little bit better situation. So we're starting to see that trend of the top line become more and more popular. Maybe we'll see that situation happen with our race leader coming towards the end.
Yeah, that'll definitely be something to keep an eye out for. And one thing that is coming to my attention right now is that a lot of these drivers have pitted around the same time. Pretty much every single one of them has pitted 5 or 6 laps ago. You have to go back a good ways before you find someone that hasn't. So at this point, everyone on seemingly the same pit strategy, at least your top 20 cars on the same pit strategy. So we'll have to see if maybe there's some drivers down there who are switching it up that may head back up here to the front, or if everyone is just kind of joined in on the same thing.
Well, that'll be an interesting situation. We get one more caution, and I think that'll let guys make it to the end on fuel. We may see the last of the major stops happening on that last pit stop session, provided, of course, we don't get another caution. But we'll find out momentarily. Nickerson and Brown are going to lead the field to green, possibly the final time. Only 17 to go when they take the green flag here. Green flag here. Nick Nickerson, great jump, but not a good jump at all for Matt Crockett there on the top. Lane Brown is going to kind of be hung out to dry for a moment, but you got to talk about Crockett's going to get a huge jump coming into corner 1. Maybe that'll be the push Brown will need to make it to the front.
A bit of a gap there for the 23 car to the 4 of Trey Ellis there on the inside lane. You see the 10 of Matt Crockett's going to take advantage of that, and he's going to jump down. And the 11 jumping up to the outside line here now.
Yeah, Bill Harkins is back. It's been a little while this race since he had some help there up top, but he's back to his old ways. And Trey Ellis there in the number 4 car, guy we've seen kind of floating around all race. He's back in contention as well. Maybe he'll use the run he can get on the number 2 car of Lacey there, and maybe he can make a move up to the top line himself, get Harkins to push him.
Both lanes seem to be working pretty well right now. Bill Harkins trying to get that outside lane to work. He's back a little bit, but the lane doesn't seem to be too much weaving in and out, I guess. They seem to be together enough to at least get themselves up there. Hopefully they can. A little bit of a gap now back to the 39, but a big run for the 11 side by side with the 4 car, Trey Ellis. Now Bill Harkins. Now Bill
corner 3. This is probably the most uniform we've seen everybody all race so far. Now Bill Harkins, as you were just about to say, now getting to the outside of Nick Nickerson, running perfectly side by side. Probably going to lead the lap here if he can come close enough there on the inside. So we're starting to get back to a more uniform setup here, where everybody is in a comfortable spot. But I don't know about you, Brent and Evan, but I'd imagine that won't last for much longer.
I would imagine it won't. Lap 61 of 75 now, and a lot of these drivers are probably about to start getting antsy, the ones who haven't already. Both Nick Nickerson and Bill Harkins both doing a great job up at the front, though. Nickerson being pushed by the 7 of Benjamin Lacey. Harkins being pushed by the 65 of Matt Clark. And that inside lane just formed just a little bit better than the outside, but the outside isn't working bad. A driver that I'm seeing up front that I haven't seen before now is that 60 car of Dustin Franklin. He's doing a good job. He's worked his way up into the top 10 now. I haven't seen him up here as much. I believe he was running toward the back of one of the heat races, just trying to stay out of trouble, if he's the one that I was thinking of. But a good job from him to work his way up front now toward the end of this race.
Bill Harkins came very close to clearing that time by. He's going to put Matt Clark in an awkward position. Caution comes out once again. Another situation where it's not one of those spots at the front, but I think if we didn't get that caution just a moment ago, we were going to see a very interesting situation with Harkins and Clark trying to share the same piece of track.
And that was a very, very close call there for sure, as the 11 of Bill Harkins just moved up a tiny bit. Or more than a tiny bit. The 11 of Bill Harkins moved up a good bit there and put Lane Brown in a tough spot. Thankfully, though, everybody was able to, from what I saw, was able to keep it safe.
I'm trying to tell who that incident was involving. I can't see any cars having any issues there in that last lap. So it may be another situation again where we have a relatively mysterious caution flag I can't explain. Nobody really seemed to have any troubles there in that last lap. So
heading to the instant replay, there are 2 incident points for Brandon Jackson and 2 incident points for Peter Murphy. They were back in the pack a little bit. So we'll see if we can watch this instant replay and see if we can see what happened. They both just seem to be pushing each other at this point. Jackson diving down to the inside. And there it is. Dove down to the inside. I don't believe that the 38 knew that he was down there and just came down, spun down through the infield, but I don't believe either car was damaged during that. Both on pit road.
that puts Brandon Jackson in a really interesting situation, because by the looks of it, everybody will now be okay on fuel, at least up front. So, your former pole sitter was already quite a ways back in the field, but now that he's pitted, I guess he can just look ahead to the end. He knows even with maybe a green-white checkered, he'd still be okay on fuel, but now he's got 24 cars ahead of him to maneuver around, and I know he's got the pace of anybody. He's got the ability. We've seen it all race, but as you called him, Action Jackson's going to have some action to work up if he wants to make his way back up there.
He definitely is. He's one that can do it, but I don't know if he'll be able to do it tonight as big of of a field that we have right now. He'll definitely be the one to keep an eye on as this race comes down to a close, though.
So just like I talked about before, I'll leave this one up to you, Evan. I know that like we are basically entirely impartial to how this finishes, but I'll leave it to you to predict with 10 laps to go, based on everything we've seen tonight. Who do you have taking it towards the end?
Well, I don't know who's going to take it, but I will mention that the number 8 of Kevin Foster is up to 14th position now. So definitely one of the drivers that I said likes to come in at the end. He's up there and definitely in a position to make something happen if he can. But one driver that I'm looking at, well, the two drivers that I'm looking at are the two on the front row, Nick Nickerson and Bill Harkins. If I had to say that either driver had the best chances to win this, I would say it was the 2 of Nick Nickerson, followed by the 11 of Bill Harkins. They're both great super speedway racers. But at the same time, I don't know a lot of these new guys. I don't know a lot of these guys up at the front. So who knows what's going to happen in the 10 laps left of today's race at Daytona International Speedway. Geezer Authentics 75.
Well, again, same situation as you. I don't know a lot of these new guys, but I also don't have a ton of experience with some of the veterans. But again, the one guy that I have seen experience watching before is Matt Clark, sitting there in the third spot there on the second car right behind Nickerson on the inside line. So he's got a lot of experience, again, in real-life road course racing. He was the Canadian Formula 1600 champion this last year, so he's got a lot of prestige in that respect. But on iRacing, I know he's a guy that he's very aggressive, but he's also very, in my experience, and at least in my series, he's always made very smart moves. He was probably somebody that seemed very calculated and knew what they were doing at all times. And just the same way that I think we've seen that from the top two in the front row, I think we could see that from Clark as well. So he's somebody I think to keep an eye on here as he pushes Nickerson to possibly the final restart of the night.
I'd say that's definitely a good skill to have here at a racetrack like this, a big super speedway, is just being smart and calculated sometimes comes into play better than skill. You can have all the skill, but if you don't make a smart move here at Daytona, then you're probably not going to do too well. As the pace car is off and we're back to green, Bill Harkins with a big jump on the outside line. Then Nick Nickerson down on the inside. Harkins going to be able to jump down and clear Nickerson. In the outside lane
we talked about that earlier in
diminished.
the race, didn't we?
Yeah, great move from the 11 car. As now the 2 car of Nickerson is going to be pushing the 11. It's going to be single file for a good ways back.
It is indeed. The first car to break that tradition is going to be Trey Ellis there. So a number of cars are going to have to settle into that inside line. And now we're going to see guys start to think about making the move up top. I think, who is that? That's Matt Clark making the move up there to the top. Just talked about him. He's going to have some help there from the number 4 car of Trey Ellis. So those two guys, let's see if they can get something going on the top line. But they certainly don't have the quantity of help that some of the other guys that are trying to make that strategy work did.
Definitely a smart move there if Matt Clark can get somebody to jump up there and help them, but if not, they may be falling back some here. Luckily, I don't believe they'll fall back too far behind the 60 car. They should be able to jump back down to the inside line if they want to.
Yeah, this will be the testing point for that dynamic. Is this is the spot where they should get a ton of ground, but it looks like they aren't. I mean, 6 cars now have cleared that two-man tandem, and they're going to get to the inside of the 60 car. Trying to remember who that is, but yeah. Oh, now the 39 is going to jump up top. He becomes the new leader up top there on the outside, and I think if I'm the 89 of Paul Wilson, I'm doing the same thing. I think that's the place to be right now. If you want to, as we come to the line here, it'll be 8 laps to go. If you want to make a convincing push up to the front in this race.
Yeah, that outside lane is moving, but, some of these drivers, if I was the 89, I might be thinking, is that really the smart thing to do? Is there going to be another caution with 8 laps to go? Do I want to just hang out here? You see Bill Harkins up there on the outside lane now. Now, I don't know whether he jumped up there on purpose. I can't think that he would. But he's going to hope that he can get a good push from the 39 of James Healy, as he's not a big wreck that's going to take out a bunch of drivers. And there's Matt Clark now on his hood, or on his roof.
Wow, that was like an Elliott Sadler roll from, I think that was Talladega a bunch of years ago. Tons of flips happening there. Probably the most violent crash we've had all race. But again, you talk about that move just before we go back to the instant replay. Yeah, it looked like Harkins elected for the top there. So not only did he take it on the restart, but it looked like he made the active move there to try to lead the race from the top line.
As we're watching the instant replay here, see, just pushing, and if you just push on the wrong side of the car, if you don't directly square up that push, if you push a little bit too far to the left or right, that's just going to send the car in front of you around. It's just something that you have to pay special attention to here when you're bump drafting at a big track like this. And that's just really unfortunate for some of those guys who got involved in that accident, but who knows whether they've used their fast repair or not. Everybody gets one, so if the 65 of Matt Clark does in fact have a fast repair left, then he can go to the pits, use that fast repair, and still be in good condition to come out here and compete for a spot in this race with only 7 laps to go.
Well, just looking at the field up there up front, always interesting to see after an instant caution who was given what spots on the timing lines. But Bill Harkins, right as he made that aggressive move up there to the top, assuming it was an intentional act, he's dropped down 3 spots as a result just because of the awkward timing of when the caution came out. So that means that Paul Wilson will now become the car in the catbird seat with control on the front line. So Bill Harkins just kind of wrong place, wrong time for him. It's a shame to see, but he's still up there in contention as ever to again win the first race of a series that he puts together, which would be quite admirable to say the least. But of course, Nickerson, he's had a lot of restarts so far this race from the pole spot, and he'll have it again as long as he doesn't pit coming to this final. And well, I keep saying final, but this is now the 3rd time I've said it, so I'm not going to jinx it anymore. Coming up to a restart.
Coming up to possibly the final restart here.
Yes, that would work better.
Yeah, you never know at a track like this whether or not this is actually going to be the final restart or not. I want to go ahead and apologize. I believe that is the 2nd or 3rd time on the stream that I have accidentally closed iRacing and flashed my desktop screen. If I just hold my mouse in the wrong place for a second, then it's going to think that I want to look at my desktop, and I do not want to do that at the moment. So sorry about that for everyone watching the broadcast. It's been a couple times that I've accidentally done that.
Carson Jones there. Carson Jones, the number 5. He's headed off the track. He had a lot of damage, but he was still running, I think, mid-pack there in 9th. So maybe my assumption would be, from a strategy perspective, coming into the pits to get his final quick repair that he's saved all this time. That way, with how few cars we have left in the race, or well, objectively few, we still have quite a few. But now, I guess, might be the time to take those quick repairs for drivers that have them left and maybe have a little bit of damage left over if they want their car in prime form coming up to the line for the end of the race.
And as we're sitting here with 6 laps to go. Real quick, I want to go ahead and just anybody who is watching here on YouTube, whether it be live or recorded, if there's anything that you think that we could do better in this broadcast, anything that you think would make the broadcast better, go ahead and leave a comment down below. It doesn't have to be right now, but just before you guys get out of here, just go ahead and leave a comment down below of anything that you think that I could do to make this broadcast better. Going throughout the season, I want to improve as much as I can. If you watch Daytona of last season, honestly, that broadcast was terrible. I hated it. It was really bad. And I feel like we have improved leaps and bounds to this season here at Daytona. But I'm still not exactly where I want to be. I always want to get better and be as good as I can. So if you just go ahead and leave those comments, let me know. After the race, I'm going to look them over and do everything that I could to go ahead and make this season the best possible. So with that being said, the lights are out on the pace car. Nick Nickerson and Paul Wilson will lead us to the line once we get back around.
Well, on top of us trying to make this race as entertaining as possible, the drivers have been doing it themselves. I mean, from the perspective of a super speedway race, this has kind of felt very similar to what we'd see from the real thing at Daytona. We've had plenty of crashes, but always spaced out for the most part throughout the race. And when we have had some action, some really interesting dynamics, some really interesting signs of maybe some partnerships going forward ahead. Maybe not next week at Iowa, because it's not exactly the best drafting track, but certainly gonna be a lot of storylines coming out of tonight's race. And I don't know about you, Evan, but I've had a blast watching tonight's race from just a fan's perspective, let alone from a commentary one.
Yeah, I've had a great time. It's been a very interesting race, and it's one of those things that's going to be really interesting looking forward because a lot of the races last season went green the whole way. So it's going to be really interesting seeing if they keep the trend of cautions up going throughout the season or if it goes back to being a mostly green league. Who knows? That's something that we'll have to look at as the pace car takes the sharp turn onto pit road, and Nick Nickerson and Bill Harkins will lead us to the green. Nickerson with a large jump. The 7 of Benjamin Lacey following him, and Bill Harkins can jump down low if he wants to. For the time being, he's going to stay out there. He's thinking about it, though, and he's going to jump down low now. The 3 cars, the 2, the 7, and the 11, all out front.
A really bizarre restart there from the 11 was quite a ways back of the 2 cars up front there on the restart. Normally, the 2 cars coming to the line is a factual statement to say it was the 2 and the 11, but Benjamin Lacey almost got a better jump than Harkins did. So no wonder Lacey was able to get the jump he was here, coming to 3 to go this next time by. Not much time left in tonight's race. I saw some smoke a little ways back, but we stayed green so far. But Lacey and Nickerson have been working together a long ways through this race. But the 60 car, I think that is Dustin Franklin. You talked about a couple laps ago. He could throw a wrench in the plans of the drivers up front. Haven't really seen him up front all day, but well, he's got the potential if he can maybe move up to the top and work with Bill Harkins to get himself up there as a dark horse to win this thing.
Yeah, Bill's doing everything he can up there on that outside line, but he's going to need a little bit more help than he has, I believe. He only has a couple cars up there. They're slowly gaining a little bit more traction. So it looks like now they may be packed up enough to actually move up, but they're going to need a little bit more of a pack to get up to the front and challenge Nick Nickerson here in the number 2 car.
I know I've jinxed a lot of things throughout this race, but something is telling me, based on my experience watching super speedway races, the car that's leading coming into 2 to go. Oh, right as we see a caution. Speaking of 2 to go, I was going to say though, the car that seems to be leading this late in the race doesn't usually win in these restrictor plate tracks. So hopefully, from Nickerson's perspective, he can break that streak. But we will have a green-white checker, and we will have another caution.
See if we can head to an instant replay on that one as well. See, the 44 and the 51 get together, and it just collects a lot of drivers, as tends to be what happens here on Super Speedway. Let's see if we can watch that again. It's 3 wide there, the 44, the 51, and the 83. We're all 3 wide there, and just as we've seen a couple times, drivers getting 3 wide and it not working very well for them. Now we're going to watch it from the cockpit of Tony Hilbrands in the 92.
Definitely one of those crashes you'd much rather see on a simulator than you would in real life. That would have been a very scary situation for Hilbrands, and we know that he's been in several very, not, I wouldn't say dangerous, but very difficult situations. He's kind of been everywhere throughout this race, and usually to his benefit, but that time just, again, wrong place, wrong time. Well, one thing, if we want to take a storyline out of tonight's race heading forward that I think is interesting from a driver's perspective, is thinking back to most of our cautions tonight. When we've seen incidents, they haven't tended to be between the top guys. They haven't tended to be a matter of drivers being aggressive at the front, making ill-advised moves. It's usually just a lot of miscommunication between the guys out back a little ways, who are usually trying to naturally drop back anyway to avoid incidents, and that can often backfire. But it's a good sign to see that the top guys that seem to have the pace aren't making ill-advised moves, and it's just a case of guys a little bit further back in the field causing the cautions. So from my perspective, always a good thing to see, because it means that on top of having very fast drivers leading the race tonight, well, we also have guys that make good decisions, and it's always something that's very key to having good, clean races, but also good and entertaining ones for the end of starts, or for the end of finishes, I should say.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much every single accident, or at least almost all of them that we've seen, have just, like you said, just been miscommunications, just guys going 3 wide, and not everybody knowing that they're 3 wide, and just a little bit of contact here, a little bit of a wrong bump, instead of just guys trying to dive bomb it into the turn, trying to make something that won't work. At least the wrecks that we've had have not been totally as bad as they could have been. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, nothing seems too sloppy. Not one of those incidents where we sit here and are in the awkward spot of having to pretend something wasn't somebody's fault, which I know I have had to do in my experience in the past. So it's good that we aren't given that awkward scenario tonight. Guys have all seemed to be very logical. Looks like a group I'd be really happy to race against. Speaking of racing, Nick Nickerson has raced the pace car all the way around the lap, so maybe he's trying to set up and practice his inside line running next to another car, which I, again, going to place money here. I hate to jinx things, but I have the feeling he will be doing coming up to the line in this race.
Yeah, there you see the number 2 car next to the pace car. Right as the lights flick off.
These guys coming out of the pits are going to have to hurry if they want to regroup with the pack. I know most of them are probably going to have damage because if they had a quick repair, they would have been out on track by now. But they got to hurry a little bit to make it out of the out in front of the pace car. I get flashbacks to that one scene in Cars that I'm sure a lot of you watching will have witnessed. Now we're going 3 wide, like that other scene at the end of or the beginning of Cars. So lots of Cars references happening right now. But we got 2 laps to go. I believe this will be our only green-white checkered. So now more so than ever, the gloves come off. Guys got to get up front, and we talked about that X Factor driver a little ways back. But I mean, you had mentioned at one point Dustin Franklin. He's made his way up there in the 60 car. He's going to be an interesting spot. And then Bill Harkins. You talk about series director. He's been up front all race. It's been a great performance for him tonight. And now's the question: coming from 20th to 4th at the end of this race, can he move up 3 more spots and take the win to start the season?
Even Brandon Jackson, the 99 car back there in the 7th position. We saw him in a little bit of an accident earlier, but now all the way back up to 7th, and definitely in a position if he could make a couple moves to wind up at the front here.
And Trey Ellis as well, another guy to mention before we get back going. He's just been up front all race. I don't think I've seen him lead a lap, but man, he's just been the top 5, top 6 master so far this race. Just hasn't left that top pack, so maybe this will be the moment he decides to get aggressive and jump up into that top 5 and maybe even further up the order.
Here you see the pace car with its lights off, getting ready to take the hard turn down onto pit road. There it goes. It's going to be the number 2 car of Nick Nickerson on the inside lane, pushed by the 60 of Dustin Franklin. The number 7 of Benjamin Lacey, pushed by the 11 of Bill Harkins, and they're back green. 3 laps to go here at Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah, much cleaner start from the entire field. Everybody's much more packed up. But again, the 60 car is now going to be in the catbird seat. He's got control of both lines. He's going to jump up to the inside of the 7 car. So now he'll have control over the back of Nickerson's car in the 2. And, well, I think Harkins has dropped back a little ways down the order as well. So he'll have to slide in. I know still second order, I should say. But he's very close. Everybody's getting real pushy here with 2 to go.
Yeah, Harkins had a slower start there, which really hurt the 7 car up there on the outside line. He didn't have much pushing help, but he was able to keep it together, and now Harkins is back up there with him. Car to keep an eye on. There's a little bit of a gap back to him, but and Bill Harkins hard in the wall on the outside lane. Everybody scattering a couple cars sideways. Ricky Hart Jr., last year's champion, sideways and upside down.
So if they call the yellow right now, the race is over. Guys are scattered over the track. Guys still crashing in the tri-oval, but if they call the caution right now, it's done. Nickerson would be your winner, so we got to keep an eye on this battle to the end. No caution flag yet. Still really only 4 drivers in contention now. We got Nickerson. That's Franklin in the 60 behind. Will he make a move to the outside and try to get a run? But there's 2 drivers sitting right behind. That's Trey Ellis and Lacey. They are in contention as well, and that 2 lines of 2 are going to form up. Who will win coming out of 4?
So we got Dustin Franklin being pushed by the 7 car of Lacey, and Nickerson being pushed by Trey Ellis on the inside, both racing around to the line. Maybe a little bit of a contact there, and watch Brandon Jackson. He's looking to get a draft, try and make a move. He's not going to have the time, though. Who's it going to be, Franklin or Nickerson?
Franklin gets him at the line.
Franklin gets him at the line, and Nickerson and Trey Ellis down on the inside line below that double yellow line. So that's definitely something to look out for. Even if Nickerson had got the nose, I don't know if that would have counted being down below the double yellow line here at Daytona.
Well, we run 78 laps, but you only got to lead the final one, and I genuinely think that was Dustin Franklin's first lead lap of the race, and what a time to wait for it. Talked all race about that top line and how important it was going to be on the final lap, and I made some bad predictions tonight, but the one good one I did make was that Nick Nickerson would be racing with the car to his outside to the line, and he was, and came 17 thousandths from winning it, but congratulations to Dustin Franklin. What a race, what a wait to get up to that top spot, and once he finally did, well, he picked the perfect moment to do it.
And one thing that I want to go ahead and point out, Mac Nelson put in the Discord chat that he accidentally used his quick repair in the first caution, and during the second caution, he got totaled. So definitely unfortunate for, he is the driver of the 77 car. Unfortunate for him. We'll have to catch him next week. But tonight's winner is going to be the number 60 of Dustin Franklin. There you see Nick Nickerson, who finished in second, sitting up there on the front row, next to Dustin Franklin. Real quick, though, before we head to the celebrations, we're going to head to a commercial while I pull these guys up into the broadcast booth so we can comment with them. We'll be back right after this commercial.
What's up, guys? If you're watching this, then you already know. Here at Evanwald Media is where I do my broadcasting.
5 laps to go. Brandon Jackson in the lead. Nick Nickerson. And he turns him. The 99 of Jackson gets turned by Nickerson.
But I bet you didn't know that I also do in-person photography and videography, as well as graphic design, including, but not limited to, iRacing paint schemes and posters. Check it all out over at evanwaldmedia.com. Thank y'all, and you enjoy the race.
Are you looking for a clean, fun, and competitive iRacing league? Well, look no further than Bandit Racing League. This season features the Class B Xfinity Series cars in the Geezer Authentics Xfinity Series. Broadcast live every Wednesday by Evanwald Media, the season features a 10-race regular season schedule, followed by 10 more playoff races and an all-star race. So if you need something to do on Wednesday nights, then check us out at banditracingleague.com and send us a message if you're interested in joining. We accept racers with a D license or above, and it's free to join, so don't miss out. All right, guys, we are back here, getting everybody in the broadcast booth. Finishing in third position was the number 7 car, Benjamin Lacey. A crazy finish there. You did your best to try and push everybody. How does it feel to come out here in your first official race with the Bandit Racing League, come out here, finish top 3?
Yeah, pretty cool to come out there. Didn't expect to actually start position 2 either. But good race out there. Was able to keep the car clean, and congrats to, I think it was Dustin that got the win, so congrats to him, and I was glad I was able to push him. Blue Angels have always been one of my favorite things to watch, so cool to see that get the win.
Yeah, I guess that's also, I forgot I meant to interview you in the very beginning when you qualified second, but I didn't have the time. Everything got so mixed up. Qualifying in second position, that's something that is just definitely down to tenths of a second. If you want to even talk about that a little bit more, how it feels to come out here, qualify in second position, and how difficult that is, just a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Daytona is one of those tracks where, every little bit counts. You move your wheel just a little bit, it's going to cause a little bit of a slow up or wherever, if you come off the line a little. But strategy for me was just the first lap, take it up close to the wall, keep it up there, and the second lap, drop it down, and try to maintain the momentum as fast as I could. And thought I had pole there till about a minute left in qualifying, and then got snagged away. I think it was Brandon that got it, so congrats to him on the pole.
Yeah, so a little bit of talking about strategy. When you went into the race, did you really have a strategy going into the race, or was it just kind of do your best, see what happened?
Yeah, starting up on second in the front row there, my strategy was to stay up front and avoid all the wrecks. Because it's Daytona, we all know that's probably going to be the case here. So that was what I was aiming to do, and I was able to execute it tonight and come away with a top 3.
Yes, sir. Well, definitely good job. Is there anybody that, before you get out of here, is there anybody that you want to thank or mention tonight?
Obviously you, man, for putting on the show. Appreciate that. And the admins of the Bandit Racing Leagues, thanks to them for allowing me in and putting on the league and doing all that. So, and I don't know if there's a sponsor here or not, but if there is, thanks to them.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and good luck in future races.
Thank you, man. Looking forward to it.
Hey, Nick, it's Marshall in the booth here. You got me?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going pretty well. And well, first of all, congratulations. I know it's 17 thousandths isn't much to miss out on a win by. That was about as close as it gets. And I mean, with how crazy those last couple laps are, I don't think you can be disappointed with second at all. But I mean, just kind of talk about your perspective there, because you led such a sizable portion of tonight's race. You were up front basically the entirety of the last 20 laps. So when you're in that position there at the front and everybody is in your rearview mirror, what's going through your head from a defensive perspective with just a couple laps to go? How are you planning on defending yourself for the win?
Man, honestly, there isn't much you can do. I mean, I can't be disappointed or happy for finishing second because I'm at the mercy of, the guys behind me. Everybody is. So, I'm just fortunate enough that I had somebody pushing me for those final restarts to even stay up in the front, because sometimes, the outside could be pushing hard and you just, 5-6 cars will pass you. So, second place is definitely really nice, all things considering in this style of racing. Yeah, I'd like to win, but, again, you're at the mercy of the people around you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And tonight coming in as my first race, I haven't had much experience watching you in your work, but to my understanding, incredible season last year, tons of wins you rattled off. Coming into tonight with a relatively new field, lots of new faces coming out, you did spend some time throughout the pack. So from your experience tonight, how are you feeling about the rest of the field tonight that has maybe made their debut tonight? How are you feeling about the rest of the driver lineup you're racing against going forward this year?
I didn't really see anything that I honestly disliked. I mean, everybody, it was pretty average. But honestly, for me, the season doesn't start until next week. Daytona, Talladega, this super speed racing it's kind of its own little thing, and when we start getting to I don't want to say real racetracks, but more racetracks that involve more than just drafting, where your skill is based on how you brake and how you corner. That's when I can start really seeing who I have to worry about, who I don't, and who I can drive around comfortably side by side. But all in all, I mean, to answer your question, I didn't really see anybody do anything kind of drastic, at least in my perspective. It seemed like everybody was holding their line fairly well. I know there's a couple times when things kind of get shaky, and when everybody is front and back 2 lanes, you get really antsy. You really want to throw it down the middle or on the outside. I know it happened a couple times, but you can't blame them. You got to try something.
Well, you talk about tonight being, you could consider not a real racetrack per se, and just how crazy it was to predict going into tonight what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But you talk about going to the real racetracks. We go to Iowa next week, which is about as pure oval racing as it gets. That's going to be an entirely different ballgame. But then we go to Long Beach the next week, and if there are 2 more different tracks than Iowa and Long Beach, I am unaware of them. But those next 2 rounds on the calendar, how are you feeling going into 2 very different racetracks than tonight? And once we get to the real thick of things, where the real strategy, the real experience comes in, how are you feeling going forward?
So for the road courses, I have no problem. That's kind of my thing, and I mean, I don't want to sound too conceited, but I feel like I got those wrapped up. Unless one of these guys is just a road course ringer, and surprising, and that's what I kind of look forward to with all these new guys. Starting next week, I'm looking forward to seeing who's actually I have to worry about as far as speed, and saving tires and whatnot. I know Ricky's there, and Brandon you got to worry about too. But now we got dang near twice as many, hopefully regular drivers as we did last year. It's going to be interesting just to kind of see how much the skill level is in this crowd.
Well, all these extra drivers showing up makes your second all the more impressive. So congratulations, Nick. It was a great performance from you tonight. As we as always do at the end of interviews, do you got anybody you want to shout out? Any sponsors to talk about before we head off?
Man, Bill and Matt and everybody that puts this league on, from last year to this year, I mean, it just seems a night and day difference. I mean, it's starting to feel extremely professional. And I know I'm glad to see that we got another broadcaster. Just by interviewing right now, I mean, it sounds like you really know what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to watching the races on the day after.
Thank you very much, Nick. I know I got to live up to the quality of racing we saw on display tonight, and I like to think I tried to do that every race. So going forward, it'll be a pleasure to watch you. I'm sure, again, that I say this to guys all the time, but I have the feeling this will not be the last time I talk to you in the next couple races. So best of luck. So. Maybe you'll be talking to in the first spot there to Evan rather than here in second with me. But going forward, best of luck, man. Have a great rest of your season, and we will see you next week.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Take care.
All right, and then finishing in first position was the number 60 car of Dustin Franklin. Dustin, this is Evan Wall up in the booth. You got a copy?
I do. Thank you.
Great run there at the end. You were really battling with the number 2 car of Nick Nickerson, but really hadn't been up front all race, just hanging out in the back and able to squeeze out the win. Was that really your plan to hang out in the back, or was it just something that happened?
Yeah, I kind of hung out in the back in the beginning, got a little bit of damage, and kind of rode around with that for a bit, and made the strategic decision when to pit and use my fast repair. And at that point, I kind of just let it play it out, and I just happened to be there at the front.
You definitely a great job on a very, very wild finish. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of the new drivers for the season. This is your first official race here, right?
It is, definitely, for sure. This is my first race here, and I want to say thank you guys. It was a good time. It was ran well, and had a good time.
Yes, sir, of course. Judging by the this is just one of the things that I'm wondering for someone who's a little bit newer here, judging by the racing from, of course, there's a lot of guys here that were here last year and new guys, but like yourself, but judging by the quality of racing, what did you think about how did the race feel from a driver's perspective?
Definitely, it's a little messy at first, but you expect that in this type of racing. Once you got to see the quality of the field. I had a good run, and I wanted to thank the number 7. He pushed me to the win. It was definitely nice, a great time battling Nick, the number 2 on the outside. It was just overall a good race for me.
Yes, sir, definitely. So hopefully, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I know last season the driver who won this race went on to win 5 out of the next 6 races. So hopefully for you can kind of continue in his legacy.
So I heard the number 2 Nick talking about road courses. That's not my forte, so I definitely got to get some practice in if I want to compete.
Yeah, he's definitely a road course ringer. One you'll have to definitely practice if you want to race against him in road courses. That's for sure. But is there anybody else that you want to thank before we head out of here, or anybody else that you want to shout out?
Not really. I had a couple of buddies watching tonight, but one specifically, he's recovering from COVID, Nestor. I knew him in the Navy, as you can see in my Blue Angels paint scheme. I wasn't a Blue Angel, but I like the paint scheme, and just wanted to say thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and good luck throughout the rest of the season. And that goes to everyone. Good luck to all the drivers throughout the rest of the season, and thank you, everyone, for watching. Yet again, if there's any sort of advice or anything that you think that I could do to make the broadcast better, go ahead and let us know. Leave us a comment. Whether you're watching this live or you're watching this after it's already posted, just leave us a comment, anything that you think we could do to improve. But otherwise, we'll see you next week. Let's pull the schedule up on the screen now. Next week we'll be at Iowa Speedway, 150 laps there. Race will go live at least 9 Eastern, 8 Central. May go live a little bit more, but a little bit before that if we want to cover some of the practice or something that day. But at the very least, if you head over there at 9 Eastern time, 8 Central time, here to my YouTube channel, Evan Wall Media, you will be able to catch the race and qualifying. But we'll see you next week. Thank you. Be sure to from the east up to the Midwest. 1 week from today, we go to Newton, Iowa, about 30 miles east of Des Moines, to the fastest short track on the planet, Iowa Speedway, a 7/8 mile D-shaped oval. So make sure to join us 1 week from today, same place, same time. We'll see you there.